Congratulations, Jessica, really, congratulations. Thank you. No, it's really a joyous occasion. Let me hold the baby, too. My in-laws were fussing over my sister's daughter as if it were their own grandchild. Congratulations, Jessica. Thank you, David. Here, this is a $6,000 gift for the baby. You, David. Here, this is a $6,000 gift for the baby. The amount caused a stir among the relatives. That's not surprising, considering for David, it was a lavish amount for the baby of his wife's sister. I also think it's strange. I mean, giving $6,000 to your own child? Well, if you say it like that, it sounds like the baby is mine. Jessica's in-laws and David responded in a fluster, but she was clear in her reply. What? Isn't the baby yours? Why would you say otherwise? Her words turned the celebration into an uproar. I'm Susan Thompson, 27 years old. I work mostly from home as a programmer. I used to work for a major IT company, but when I got married 3 years ago, I went independent and became a freelancer. My skills as a software engineer are well regarded, and even after leaving, I still take on projects from my former company, as well as individual clients. I must say I'm quite in demand and lead a busy, fulfilling life. However, amidst this lifestyle, there's one thing that's a bit bothersome, or rather, makes me sigh. The issue of having children. My husband David and I have been struggling to conceive, and my in-laws often make snide remarks about it. They also disapprove of my continuing to work. They believe if I truly wanted children, I should become a stay-at-home wife and focus on fertility treatments. I'm constantly dealing with unexpected phone calls and visits from my in-laws. It's always me who has to respond. Hey, could you ask your parents to give us a heads up before coming over? Why? I have work too, and it's hard to host them on such short notice. I'd like to have the house tidy. Can you tell them to stop dropping by unannounced? I tried to subtly tell David that these visits were a nuisance, but he didn't take it seriously. What's the big deal? We're family. No one minds if things are a bit messy. Unbelievable. I lean towards minimalism. I can't relax unless unnecessary items are disposed of immediately. My closet has just a few clothes, and aside from work documents, I mostly use ebooks. Everything around me is really simple. In contrast, David's room is a mess. He leaves cardboard boxes and packing materials lying around. When I try to clean up, he insists he still needs them. We live in an apartment with separate rooms. Mine is almost empty and always clean, but David's room is hopeless. It's cluttered and dusty. When I try to clean it, he gets angry and tells me to stay out. Yet, my in-laws suggest that if I can't keep the house clean, I should quit my job and focus on housework. Why is David's room so dirty, Susan? Why don't you clean it? I'd like to, but David won't let me. Excuses. A dirty house is the homemaker's responsibility. If you can't handle it, quit your job and focus on being a housewife. It's a no-win situation. You look like you think we're picking on you. Modern daughters-in-law are so troublesome. We're just trying to teach you how to be a good wife. You should understand that. If Susan understood her role, we wouldn't need to say these things. She looks like she thinks she's the victim, which is just pitiful. David just sits there, nodding along to his parents' words, never taking my side. According to them, the second chapter of How to Be a Good Wife is about producing an heir as soon as possible. In the old days, if a wife didn't have a child within 3 years, she was sent away. Speaking of which, it's almost been 3 years since you got married. I still think Susan should quit her job and devote herself to being a housewife. The way things are, it's like David isn't capable enough. It's probably just because she wants her own spending money. A woman's earnings are insignificant. How long will she keep up this selfishness for some pocket change? They both pressure me to quit my job. Finally, David speaks up. Well, nowadays women work too. I think it's fine for her to keep working a bit longer. David, you're too soft? That's why Susan keeps taking advantage. Maybe you should be a bit stricter? Exactly. We're teaching Susan how to be a good wife in your place. Look at that dissatisfied face. After a bit of scolding, David, my in-laws sigh and finally conclude their lecture on how to be a good wife. In reality, David's income alone is not enough to sustain our current lifestyle. I've considered exposing this fact, but I've been holding back because David has been pleading with me. Please, I want to look good in front of my parents. Please, I'm begging you, just like this. Please, I'll try to earn more. Just hold on until then. He begged so desperately that I reluctantly kept silent, but there's no sign of his salary increasing. I'm nearly at the end of my patience. During such a frustrating time, my in-laws came to know about something that worsened their snide remarks. I have an elder sister named Jessica, who is 28 and has 3 sons. Jessica married early, right after high school graduation. Her partner was a classmate, and it was a shotgun wedding. However, she divorced when her first child was still young. After her second marriage, which was also a shotgun wedding, she divorced again. Now she is on her 3rd marriage, living with her 3rd husband and 3 children. To be honest, I don't get along well with Jessica. Frankly, we're not on good terms. Her poor behavior and selfishness are the reasons. She has caused our parents a lot of trouble. I don't know the exact reasons for her divorces, but I suspect it's due to her infidelity. And I think our parents might have paid her alimony. But since our parents don't talk about it, I never asked, and prefer to keep my distance from her. Yet one day when my in-laws were visiting, Jessica happened to come over. I thought of leaving the kids with my mom and dad, but they were out. Can you take care of them instead? She said abruptly, bringing her 3 children over. Just at that moment, my in-laws were in the middle of lecturing me about how to be a good wife. Oh my, is this Susan's sister? And look, she has 3 children. Oh well, look at these lively kids. Having 3 is indeed enviable. Hello, I'm Jessica, Susan's sister. She has been a great help. For some reason, Jessica hit it off with my in-laws. Susan, you never told us about such a lovely mother. Indeed, she doesn't look like a mother of 3. So young and pretty. Thank you. I don't know why they took to each other, but they were chatting away. So, Jessica, do you work? I'm a stay-at-home mom. That's wonderful. Nowadays, women talk about working and neglecting their homes, but you're commendable. Jessica never worked a day since high school. Her first husband's parents enrolled him in a college where all he needed to do was sign his name, and they also took care of Jessica and her child. 3 years later, she divorced and soon remarried when she became pregnant with her second husband's child, only to divorce again 4 years later. She immediately remarried her current husband after becoming pregnant again. It wasn't that she didn't want to work. She never had the chance or the need to. Susan, you should learn a thing or two from your sister. Indeed, you could use some of her wisdom. It seemed like learning how to be a good wife now included learning from your sister. From that day, Jessica began visiting often with her children, seemingly coordinating with my in-laws. Really, David should have married Jessica. Then these adorable 3 kids might have been our grandchildren. Exactly. Otherwise, our family might end without an heir. Jessica seemed pleased with the praise from my in-laws and would leave with some pocket money after basking in their attention. This became a routine. During these times, the care of her children was always dumped on me. Susan, take good care of the children, they would say. Yes, it'll be good for you to awaken your maternal instincts. It's good practice for you too. After several instances, I reached my breaking point. I work from home, not just idly spending my time. I repeatedly tried to explain, but it was ignored. Enough already. Tell your parents not to come to our house. I appealed to David, but he just seemed annoyed. Your sister comes over too. It's not fair to tell only my parents not to come. That's why I don't want either of them coming over. I couldn't work like this. Are you okay with me quitting my job? I asked. That would be a problem, David knew well. We couldn't maintain our lifestyle if I stopped working. Perhaps that's why he acted quickly this time. Somehow he managed to stop both his parents and Jessica from visiting. It seems they meet somewhere else now. I know this because after their meetings, my in-laws would call to praise Jessica. Jessica is really admirable, having 3 kids in an era of single children. She even wants more. Really, you should take a page out of your sister's book. It seems that after meeting with Jessica, they decided to make snide comments to me. As far as I was concerned, as long as they didn't come to our house, it was fine. I could just nod along to their phone calls. But around that time, David's behavior began to change. He started coming home late and going out on weekends more often. "I'm just trying to work hard, so I'm a bit busier," he said. But I started to doubt if it was really just work. He would smirk while secretly checking his phone and make calls outside the house. I couldn't help but suspect that he was talking to another woman. Then, after a while of this going on, Jessica contacted me. She was pregnant with her fourth child. When the baby was born, it was a girl. Jessica was overjoyed with her first daughter, as her first 3 children were boys. "We must go celebrate with her. Indeed, it's truly a joyous occasion. We must attend the celebration." With my in-laws saying so, I proposed an idea. "If we're going anyway, why don't we all go together? Let's invite our parents, Jessica's in-laws, and relatives. Let's have a grand celebration." "That's a good idea, Susan. You do come up with good ideas sometimes. Let's celebrate in a big way." Once Jessica was feeling better and the baby had settled, we planned a celebration in a private room at a restaurant. The attendees were the guests of honor. Jessica and her husband with the baby, her husband's parents, grandparents, sister, and her husband, brother and his wife, our parents, and us, making a total of 17 people, including my in-laws for some reason. Jessica's 3 older children were left with a babysitter, another one of my suggestions. With so many adults gathered, it might be boring for the kids. Why not have them stay home this time, and we can have a separate celebration for them later? Jessica and her husband thought about it, but I added, "Of course I'll pay for the sitter. It's part of the celebration." They happily agreed. The private room in the restaurant was decorated with congratulations and arranged so that the family could comfortably celebrate. The first-class restaurant truly offered the best setting. It was perfect for today's celebration. One by one, everyone congratulated Jessica, who was clearly delighted. Her husband, sitting next to her, seemed a bit embarrassed by the grand celebration, but thanked everyone with a smile. "Congratulations, Jessica." "Really, congratulations." "Thank you." No, it's really a joyous occasion. Let me hold the baby, too." My in-laws were fussing over her daughter as if it were their own grandchild. "Congratulations, Jessica." "Thank you, David. Here, this is a $6,000 gift for the baby." The relatives were abuzz at the amount. For David, it was an exorbitant sum to give for the baby of his wife's sister. "Thank you," Jessica said as she accepted the envelope as if it were expected, but the murmuring among the relatives didn't subside. Her husband looked confused, glancing between Jessica and David. "David, I can't accept such a large gift." "It's okay, please accept it." "But this is too much." He seemed truly troubled. "It's just a token from David. Please accept it." Yes, don't hesitate." My in-laws encouraged him with smiles, but he remained motionless. Then David turned to me. "Tell him to accept it, Susan. Come on, quickly tell him not to hesitate." "Don't hesitate?" "Yes, of course." Since they said not to hesitate, I spoke my mind without holding back. "I think it's strange, too, giving $6,000 to your own child." My words stirred up more commotion among the relatives. "What are you saying? That's Jessica's husband's baby." "Yeah, what nonsense are you talking about? It sounds like you're saying the baby is mine." David and my in-laws responded in a flurry, but I was clear in my reply. My words turned the celebration into chaos. "What are you talking about?" "It's okay, no need to hide it." I said this and pulled out a bundle of photos from my bag. "Here, everyone, have a look." I scattered them like confetti. "What are you doing?" "What's this?" The photos clearly showed David and Jessica in compromising, unmistakably adulterous positions. "Why do you have these photos? Why would you do this?" Jessica and David scrambled to pick them up, but it was impossible to gather all the dozens of photos. Her husband picked up a few. "Don't look." Jessica snatched them from her husband's hand, but it was too late. He had seen the evidence of his wife's infidelity. The commotion wasn't limited to Jessica and David. My in-laws turned pale and froze. "Thank you, my dear in-laws." What for?" I thanked them with a beaming smile. "Thanks to you too, I was able to take these photos. I'm truly grateful." The in-laws exchanged confused glances. David's behavior had started to change around the time he and Jessica began meeting outside. The timing was too good, and though I had suspicions, part of me couldn't believe it. It seemed unthinkable for a man to have such relations with his wife's sister. Despite the classic signs of infidelity, I didn't know who the other person was and was pondering how to get proof when I noticed something odd. On days when my in-laws made strange calls, David's behavior was off and Jessica would drop off her kids at our parents'. So I hired a detective agency to watch David and Jessica on those days. The cycle was somewhat predictable, and though not certain, I had a good guess of when it might happen. Had I not known when to watch, the costs would have been substantial. Thanks to you, I saved a lot on the investigation fees. I really appreciate it. I thanked my in-laws sincerely. Jessica, what is this all about? It's not what it looks like. What do you mean it's not what it looks like? And this child, is it David's? What does that mean? Her husband trembled. Jessica just admitted already. That's right. Let's just tell the truth now. Eh? David jumped at his parents' words. Susan, it's all your fault. Yes, all your fault. My in-laws sneered at me. We know you've been going to a gynecologist, haven't you? Yes. You have a difficult time conceiving, and you kept quiet about it. David was deceived into marrying a woman who can't bear children. They questioned David, but he remained silent. David is too kind. Even now he's protecting such a wife. Just tell the truth, no need to hold back. Then they revealed the truth. They had always disliked me for not quitting my job and not showing signs of wanting children. When they pressured David to divorce, he had said, just wait a bit longer. Susan is undergoing fertility treatment to have a child. They tolerated it, thinking I might want a child. But there were no signs of pregnancy. Then we met Jessica. She already had 3 children, clearly capable of bearing children, so we asked her to have a child with David and planned to have them marry after divorcing you. The relatives were shocked, including myself. So you helped Jessica and David to have an affair, is that it? Yes, and once she had the child, you and David were to divorce, and he would remarry Jessica. You're no longer needed. Just divorce David already. I was stunned by their audacity. Yes, I plan to divorce David. A man who cheats with his own sister-in-law is useless to me. Just making excuses. Good for you, David. Now you can live with Jessica and your daughter as a family. The in-laws were overjoyed, but David just turned pale and trembled. I never planned to divorce Susan. What are you saying? The in-laws and Jessica were stunned at his unexpected words. That makes sense, doesn't it? If we divorced, we couldn't afford a comfortable lifestyle anymore. David continued to tremble, unable to respond. The truth was, David earned a meager salary. His company, based on meritocracy, rewarded high sales with higher pay, but David, with poor sales performance, was at risk of losing his job at any moment. It's a lie. David works for a major manufacturer, doesn't he? I heard he was earning a lot. He's a contract worker at a subsidiary of a major manufacturer. See? That was the truth. David, unable to find a job after college, managed to get hired as a contract worker at his current company. The promise of becoming a permanent employee, if he performed well, turned out to be an empty one, in a black company. I felt sorry for him, but if that was the case, he should have looked for a new job or tried to improve his performance instead of just complaining and doing nothing. I was told he worked for a major manufacturer too, but I didn't choose to marry him for his company. I believed him when he said he was working hard to become a permanent employee. So you lied. You liar. Jessica slapped David hard and he tried to escape, but couldn't avoid the blow. I thought you were a high earner. What am I supposed to do with your child? I was deceived into having. That's okay. The child definitely isn't David's. Eh? I decided to tell everyone the truth. I indeed went to a fertility clinic, but it wasn't me who had the problem. It was David. That was the fact. After being blamed by my in-laws for not having children, we had tests done, and I was fine. When David was tested, it turned out he was almost certainly infertile. But a certain male celebrity underwent severe treatments and managed to have a child. I asked David to undergo the same, but he refused, because it was painful. Everyone turned to look at David, but he just hung his head in silence. So whose child is Jessica's then? Normally, it would be her husband's. But knowing Jessica, I can't be certain of that. My mother-in-law collapsed to the floor in dismay, and my father-in-law trembled with rage. But there's a slim chance that it could be David's. It seems he thought so too. So a DNA test might be a good idea. Yes, we need to clarify whose child it is. It's definitely your child. We're not doing any tests. Despite the desperate words from my brother-in-law, my sister's pleas were in vain, and it was clear that such arguments wouldn't change the situation. And so, the celebration for the newborn ended in chaos. I didn't want to expose this kind of scene to anyone. That's why I didn't bring my nephews to this gathering. Regardless of who the father might be, there was no fault on the part of the children. I couldn't subject them to such a distressing situation, and that's what I believed. Fortunately, the child my sister had just given birth to was indeed my brother-in-law's. Hearing this was a relief. Even for this new child, there was no blame to be placed. My sister, upon learning the result, became defiant, asserting that she wouldn't get a divorce and would continue to live with my brother-in-law just as before. However, the fact that she had an affair with another man was an undeniable truth. My brother-in-law decided to take custody of the newborn daughter and the nephew who was just slightly older. My sister vehemently resisted, but I provided the results I had obtained from the private investigator. With no other choice, she had to agree to the divorce. It's your fault. You're the reason I'm getting divorced. They're demanding alimony and child support from me. How are you gonna make this right? My sister came to my place shouting in anger, but I was the one who had been wronged here. She had no right to complain to me. If you want to talk, can you go through a lawyer? I'll be claiming alimony from you too. What? Shouldn't you know that it's only natural when you have an affair with someone else's husband? My sister was making a ruckus, but when I told her that I would call the police if she continued to cause trouble, she left in a huff. Come to think of it, I had a misunderstanding about my sister's first divorce. I had thought that our parents had paid the alimony on her behalf. As it turned out, the cause of both divorces was my sister's infidelity. In reality, instead of paying alimony, she had offset it against child support. Both husbands had wanted to take custody of the children during the divorces, but my sister, who was after child support, had vehemently refused to give them up. As a result, she didn't receive any child support, but in return, she didn't have to pay alimony either. However, this time, both of the older children, the boys, were taken by their biological fathers. Fortunately, they turned out to be the children of their respective fathers. For my sister, it might be considered a miraculous turn of events, and perhaps even God believes that the children are innocent. In exchange for giving up custody of her son, my sister is now in a position where she will have to pay child support. It's possible that she may also have to pay alimony. Until now, she had been offsetting alimony with child support. So with the change in circumstances, I heard that there would be a need for a new discussion and negotiation. My sister lost all her children and the support of those who had been taking care of her. From now on, she would have to make the payments herself. She had never worked before and had lived as she pleased. Now, the consequences had caught up with her all at once. My sister went to our parents for help, but even they couldn't forgive her this time. They told her that her past actions were because they had raised her wrong, and with tears in their eyes, they advised her to find a live-in job, work diligently, and turn her life around. However, it was unclear whether my sister truly understood this advice. After all, my sister, who learned the truth later, even came to me in tears, which was quite surprising. Both my in-laws and my sister believed that David was a high earner. So my sister confessed that she had intended to abandon her ordinary office worker husband Bob and remarry David once she had children. But it was a lie. I was deceived too. In other words, I'm the victim of your husband. The real high earner was you. So please help me, I beg you. Yes, our family, which they thought was living a good life, was all thanks to my income. I'm highly regarded as a programmer. The work from my original company is like a form of gratitude. The real income comes from the sales of the programs I developed personally. People all over the world use it, and I have a substantial monthly income without doing anything. However, because David cried and begged, I kept this a secret. It's a matter of a man's pride, that's why. Now that I think about it, I can't remember at all what was good about David. Somehow I feel like the fact that he was flawed in some way was cute. but it's fine now. I've come to understand that a bad man is just a bad person. David didn't want to get a divorce and cried, resisting it. Perhaps he thought that, like before, if he cried, he could somehow manage to get through it. What I love is only you. Oh really? Even though you cheated on your sister? Huh? No, that's because my parents told me to, and that's why I wanted a child. David claimed unbelievable things and used it as an excuse for his infidelity. So I really believed that it was my child. I forgot that I had a body that couldn't have children. If I had remembered, I wouldn't have done it. It's truly exasperating. David, with his man's pride, apparently couldn't believe it. Even that $6,000 my parents told me to give it, so that's why I did. I didn't give it with celebratory feelings. I haven't paid a penny. David boldly asserts such an embarrassing thing. It's not something an adult would say. I felt exhausted, feeling all the strength drained from my body. Talking to him any further would be pointless. That's enough. Does that mean you'll forgive me? No, of course not. You don't need to say anything else. I'm not going to listen anymore. I told David to go through a lawyer from now on and kicked him out of the house. I have no intention of letting him inside anymore. I'll send all that trash to my parents' house in one go, of course with postage due afterward. The divorce proceedings progressed smoothly, and I finally became a free woman. Of course, I made sure he paid alimony. He asked for it to be divided, but I couldn't trust him at all. He definitely stopped paying halfway through. When I mentioned that if he couldn't pay all at once, we'd have to go to court, he somehow managed to come up with the full payment. Maybe my in-laws paid it, but money is money no matter where it comes from, so I accepted it gratefully. Now, my in-laws won't criticize me, and I won't have to listen to David's pathetic complaints anymore. I didn't want to hear anything about David's child, but it seems that the world is small, or maybe it's impossible to do bad things, as my sister's acquaintance is a neighbor of my in-laws, and what my in-laws did spread like wildfire. Nowadays, my in-laws are famous as the dreadful couple who facilitated their son's affair. Affair with his wife's sister, and David is known as the good-for-nothing husband who cheats at his parents' bidding. They can't show their faces and have become pariahs in the neighborhood. Additionally, the news of this scandal reached David's workplace, making it difficult for him to work. He eventually resigned and has been trying to find a new job, but it hasn't been going well. I heard that he's mostly holed up at his parents' house now. But all of this doesn't matter to me, as long as they don't come into contact with me. They are no longer part of my life. I felt a sense of relief as I tidied up the house. As planned, I started packing up David's belongings one by one to send them to his parents' house. I found myself humming a tune, enjoying the task. It's so much better now. I looked around the house, which had become less cluttered, and thought it was good that I could get rid of things I didn't need. They say that when you dispose of unnecessary things, new things come into the empty space, bringing good fortune. My house originally had plenty of space, but perhaps because of that one room and one person, luck hadn't been circulating. I opened all the windows in the house. It was winter, and the cold wind swept through the house, but it helped clear out the last traces of bad air. In the room that had now become completely empty, the room of my ex-husband, whose name I had already forgotten, I took a deep breath of the new air. Even in the cold breeze, it felt like there was a hint of spring in the air. I sensed that the bright season was just around the corner. Just $20,000? For your eldest son's wedding, that's all? My son, whom I cherished more than my own life, spoke with a sneer. If you're a parent, you should pay the whole amount. You poor thing. Is this really my son? After divorcing my ex-husband, who was a harmful drunkard, I remarried Benjamin and have been living happily as a family of 3. Kind and gentle Benjamin warmly and strictly raised my son Mateo, who was not his biological child. They were the very picture of a loving father and son. Mateo grew up to be a kind young man and successfully became an independent adult. Living as a couple again after our son moved out felt refreshingly new. In the midst of our peaceful life, suddenly our son contacted us to say, "I got married." The news came so suddenly, and it was all after the fact. I was surprised, but I accepted it, considering he's an adult. The bride he brought home seems to be from a wealthy family. However, what concerns me isn't her background. To put it nicely, she's a person who can speak her mind without fear. To put it poorly, she's insensitive and can blurt out rude remarks without a second thought. Could her personality have influenced my son? To my knowledge, Mateo was never someone who acted so arrogant when others would support him financially. He wouldn't disdain his parents by calling them poor. I was left in shock and disbelief. Is this really my son in front of me? I almost wish someone would tell me he's just a stranger who happens to look like my son. Just then, there was a loud bang on the table, and my usually calm husband Benjamin, who never raised his voice, exploded in anger. "Shut up, boy." In his eyes, I saw a level of contempt and anger I had never seen before. I, Mila, got married at the age of 25. Soon after the wedding, I had a child and became a full-time homemaker, raising my child. I divorced my first husband when our son Mateo was just 1 year old. It's Mila's fault for making me angry. Enough already. He was a man who would berate me when drunk, throwing things around the house, punching and kicking. His bad drinking habits seemed to worsen with each day, and he appeared to be increasingly intolerant to alcohol. In addition to shouting loudly, he would throw objects to further intimidate me, occasionally hitting me and causing injuries. Even then he would say, "Can't you even dodge, you slowpoke?" It's not my fault. Once he threw a glass at me while I was holding Mateo. I instinctively shielded my son. The glass hit my temple, breaking and causing bleeding. That was when I decided to divorce. If this continued, Mateo might get hurt someday. My ex-husband's drinking problem was only getting worse, and it was possible that something life-threatening might happen. I was determined to protect my son. But if something happened to me and we were still married, this man would become Mateo's guardian. Could I let such a man, who had injured me and might do something even more dangerous, be responsible for him? This was a dreadful scenario I absolutely had to avoid. So I ran to a hospital that was open at night, blood streaming from my temple, carrying Mateo in my arms, and got a medical report. I also explained my situation to the hospital staff, who then contacted the authorities. This way, Mateo and I were recognized as victims of abuse, and we successfully involved a third party between me and my ex-husband. My ex-husband was very good at keeping up appearances, especially around others, except for me and our son, even more so when he was sober. That's why having a third party involved was absolutely necessary. Soon after, the divorce was finalized. My ex-husband's last words were about how he felt neglected by me, Mila, after our son Mateo was born, but it was just more of his self-centeredness. In reality, although we had arranged for alimony and child support, he only made the initial payment. It was only a few $100s. After receiving a few $100s, the payment suddenly stopped. Initially, I attempted to demand the payments, but he either avoided or reacted aggressively. So I gave up. I never had any expectations from him. After deciding to divorce, I reached out to the company I worked for before my pregnancy, explained my situation, and asked if they would rehire me. Fortunately, they did, so I had a stable income, though modest. What mattered most was Mateo's well-being and my ability to work healthily. I thought it best to eliminate any stress. It's you, Mila, and Mateo that I want to spend my life with. The person who stood by me during those desperate days was Benjamin, who had joined the company as a fresh graduate after I resigned. He was 4 years younger than me, in his mid-20s at the time. I couldn't believe that such a young man would say such things to a divorced single mother like me. I want to date you, Mila, but I also want to get married soon. You shouldn't talk about marriage so lightly. Initially, I couldn't trust Benjamin. I thought maybe his youth and a romanticized idea of marriage made him speak without thinking. As someone who had already failed at marriage once, it was a word I didn't really want to hear. If we get married, we can always be together and share the responsibilities of taking care of Mateo and the household. Plus, to truly become Mateo's father, I need to marry you first. Is it to become Mateo's father? Of course, I love you, Mila, but I also think of marrying both you and Mateo. I was speechless. I had never imagined he would think in such a way. Could he really be serious about this? I'll take the same responsibility for Mateo as you do. I think that's part of being close to you, Mila. Benjamin said with a warm smile. It made my frozen heart start to thaw. Benjamin always considered Mateo and me as a package. He never just asked me out for dinner after work. Instead, he'd offer to help with shopping and even carry groceries to our apartment. Recently, when I had to leave work early because I wasn't feeling well, he offered to pick up Mateo from daycare and even brought dinner for us. Mateo had grown quite fond of Benjamin, and seeing the two of them laughing together made me happy. By marrying, I gain a lot of rights. I can become a husband, a father, a family member, so please marry me for my sake. I knew he phrased it that way to not burden me, but his words made me very happy. When Mateo turned 3, Mateo and I decided to remarry, this time to Benjamin. Though there was no blood relation, Benjamin and Mateo had a close father-son relationship. We never told anyone about our decision to remarry, but it felt right for our family. We never told Mateo that he wasn't biologically related to Benjamin. It wasn't about keeping it a secret, it just never seemed necessary or the right time to say anything. After all, they were undeniably father and son. Benjamin provided both kindness and discipline to Mateo. With both of us working, we gained some financial stability and even managed to build a respectable house, though not a mansion. Mateo grew up healthy, went to college, and now works and lives independently. Currently, Benjamin and I live together in this house. Just the two of us. It feels a bit strange to be living as a couple again after all this time, but we're enjoying our peaceful life together. It had been a few years since Mateo became a working adult, when one day, out of the blue, we received a call from him. I got married. I'll bring my wife over this weekend. It was a complete shock. I hadn't even heard he was seeing someone, and now he was already married. They were still planning their wedding ceremony and would set a date once everything was arranged. Well, he's an adult now, and as long as he takes responsibility for his decisions, that's fine. But still, I was taken aback by the fact that he had married without any prior notice. I wondered if there was a pressing reason like pregnancy, but that wasn't the case. My son Mateo had always been a bright and kind boy. There was a bit of a rebellious phase, but he was always able to reflect on his actions, so he never really behaved terribly. We never had a strained relationship in our family, and even after becoming independent, he frequently visited home, joining us for meals, just like before. That's why Benjamin and I were puzzled by this sudden announcement of his marriage. Welcome back, Mateo. Thanks, Mom. This is Grace, my wife. Mateo brought his wife home on the weekend. The woman named Grace, standing next to him, smiled gently and bowed slightly. She was slender, demure, and I genuinely thought she was very beautiful. Please come in. When I invited Mateo and his wife Grace inside, they nodded and followed Benjamin through the hallway. I naturally followed them at the rear end. Grace was looking around the house curiously, glancing everywhere, her gaze darting to the stairs and closed doors. Even after entering the living room, her behavior didn't change. Her obvious scrutiny of our home felt both peculiar and somewhat unpleasant, raising questions about what kind of person she was. Her unabashed staring around our home was puzzling, and as much a cause for discomfort as it was for growing curiosity. I couldn't help but wonder, what kind of person is this young lady? As we sat opposite each other at the dining table ready to talk, Mateo explained that Grace was 2 years younger than him and had joined his company this spring. She must be around 25, perhaps having changed jobs. Grace's parents were chairpersons of a well-known company, and she grew up in a wealthy household with housekeepers always present to take care of everything. All these details were shared by Mateo, while Grace sat quietly beside him, not saying a word. Coffee or tea, which would you prefer? What kind of work do you do with the company? I hear you're planning a wedding. Do you have any particular preferences for it? Even when asked these questions, Grace would whisper in Mateo's ear, covering her mouth with a handkerchief, and he would answer on her behalf. Grace just smiled and narrowed her eyes, making the situation rather awkward. It all felt quite circuitous and cumbersome. Grace, I know it's our first meeting, and you might be reserved, but you don't have to hold back. Just say whatever you want. Benjamin probably felt the same way. He said this as if he was running out of patience. But Grace continued to cover her mouth and only smiled with her eyes. Even after that, Mateo spoke on her behalf. They left early, saying, "We just came to report today." In the end, we never heard Grace's voice. What to say? Yes, indeed. After they left, Benjamin and I could only exchange such words, looking at each other. Is this how young people are these days? No, the new recruits at the company aren't like this. Not introducing oneself, not making proper eye contact, not uttering a word of greeting or thanks. Yet she unabashedly looked around our home and didn't say any words of gratitude or seem concerned about the parting gift we gave. It was really strange, almost like encountering a new kind of human. The sense of unease was significant. Now that they're married, they're their own family, so as long as Mateo and Grace do well together, that's enough. I agree, a moderate relationship seems just right. Benjamin probably felt the same. He said this with a wry smile. We neither desired to live together nor had any grand expectations about the mindset of being a wife. So I thought it would be best if we just met on occasion. That was my thought, but for some unknown reason, Mateo and Grace began visiting frequently. They didn't live far, so it was easy for them to stop by. But Grace still wouldn't speak a word. She would whisper to Mateo, who then answered for her. Their visits became more frequent, often staying for dinner or overnight, which honestly felt stressful. Today, while I was preparing dinner, Mateo texted, "We're coming over." It was about dinner time, so I naturally asked if they would stay for dinner, and he replied, "Yes, we'll eat." When they arrived, they went straight to Mateo's room. Room upstairs, not offering to help. Mateo used to help with meal preparations, but that's no longer the case, which is both sad and disappointing. I'll go call Mateo and Grace for dinner. After Benjamin helped me finish preparing dinner, I decided to go upstairs to call the two of them down. Really, what do I think of this? I mused as I went upstairs. I heard a voice that wasn't Mateo's, a woman's voice I had never heard before. It had to be Grace. It was the first time I heard her speak. "Isn't this house too old?" "Is it secondhand?" "No, it's not. Your father-in-law and mother-in-law are not impressive. The house and the people have this poor vibe that's depressing." My first thought was, so this is her true nature. I was infuriated by her disrespectful tone and mocking voice, but it felt like the discomfort I had been feeling deep down had finally been revealed. If you don't cut ties with this old-fashioned family, it could lead to divorce, you know? I'll think about it. Later, I waited for the right moment to call them down for dinner. The four of us spent a lackluster meal together, and Mateo and Grace left as soon as they finished eating. I'm disappointed in Grace's personality and Mateo's lack of discernment. Yeah, I'm most angry that Mateo said he'd think about it when Grace threatened divorce if he doesn't cut ties. I shared all of this with Benjamin as we drank coffee after dinner. I was upset at Grace for casually bringing up divorce, and at Mateo for even considering abandoning his parents and home. Calm down a bit, Benjamin soothed me as my anger grew over time. Prioritizing his wife isn't a bad thing for a husband to do. I know, but still, they're still young, probably can't see beyond themselves. Let's just watch for a while. Indeed, they are newlyweds. Grace is young and was probably brought up very pampered. I'm disappointed that Mateo chose someone like her, but ultimately, it's his life. It's okay, Mateo's life is his own. After all, even though we're family, we are different people, and it wouldn't be strange if our paths diverged. That's an extreme view, but if it comes to that, there's nothing we can do. Mateo is a kind guy at heart, and he might just find a way to balance between Grace and us. Benjamin believes in Mateo. Generous Benjamin never unjustly got angry or raised his voice at Mateo. Perhaps that's why Mateo grew up to be a considerate and gentle boy, without the usual teenage rebelliousness. And that's what I thought. At least, that's what I believed. I still have faith in him, but I can't shake off my anxiety about what lies ahead. We've set the wedding date. I want to talk about it, so we'll come over tomorrow. Benjamin and I, as usual, welcomed Mateo and Grace into our home. As we sat around the dining table, it was Mateo who did all the talking, just like always. "Here, Mateo," I said, placing a bank card and the PIN information in front of him on the table, which was in Mateo's name. "Use this for the wedding. I had created this account when I divorced." It was my resolve to protect Mateo no matter what, slowly saving money for him. Benjamin knew about this account too, and after we remarried, he suggested, should we put in a fixed amount every month? But by then, Mateo already had an education insurance plan and we were making monthly payments for it. Additionally, this savings account was more like a personal satisfaction for me, funded by my allowance. So, there were times when I couldn't deposit money if funds were tight. Even so, I had reached the goal of $20,000 that I had set when I opened the account. So, I thought this was the right time to give it to Mateo. When Mateo received the bank card, he opened the PC and checked the account. For the only son's big day in this house, only $20,000? Those were the words that came out of Mateo's mouth. Grace was also peering into the contents of the account shown on the screen from the side. If you're a parent, you should be able to pay the full amount, you pauper, Mateo sneered with a twisted mouth. Grace too had the same expression. As for me, my mind went blank. Was Mateo standing right in front of me, really my son? I didn't expect him to cry with joy or anything. I just thought it would be good for Mateo to use it. Shut up, boy. There was a loud bang on the table and a roar. It was Benjamin. Mateo and Grace, sitting opposite, were startled and froze, and so was I. Benjamin had never raised his voice like this before. It's a good time to say this now. There's no blood relation between me and Mateo. Huh? Mateo uttered a foolish voice in surprise. It's understandable. We never mentioned it before, and I didn't expect Benjamin to reveal it at this moment. I've been with Mateo since he was 2 years old, and when he was 3, Mila and I remarried, becoming a family with Mateo. Mateo was speechless, with a stunned expression. Mila divorced her former husband to protect Mateo. Benjamin knew everything. He saw all the records of negotiations with the government officials for the divorce, the medical reports and photos of injuries, and pictures of the damaged house. Mila, even when injured by her husband's violence, always protected Mateo, making sure he wasn't hurt. She was hurt. She divorced for that reason when you were 1 year old. The ex-husband ran away without paying alimony or child support. He never bothered to contact Mateo. That was unforgivable. Mila worked hard for Mateo's sake, creating this savings account. Even after marrying me, Mila saved in this account from the money she could freely use. There was hardly any surplus. I considered this savings account as a form of self-satisfaction, fulfilling my solitary parental heart by doing something for Mateo. After marrying Benjamin, our financial situation eased. We were no longer worried about daily food expenses, could buy necessary school supplies when needed, and even managed to get educational insurance. We were able to pay the tuition fees without delay, all thanks to Benjamin. But Mateo is my child, born to me. I wanted to do something for him. Though I'm not related to Mateo by blood, I love him dearly as my son. I truly believe that. To me, Benjamin and Mateo are like a real father and son. But separately, Mila loves Mateo. It's incomparable to me. I think it's nonsensical even to compare. Hearing it spelled out feels a bit embarrassing. But that's how it is. Mateo is more important to me than my own life. I've felt this way ever since he was in my womb, unchangingly. And yet, what did you say earlier? Say it again. I'm sorry. When Benjamin pressed him with a loud voice, Mateo apologized just as loudly. Really, I'm sorry. That's right. I vaguely remember the old apartment we lived in when I was little, and when we moved out of there. He remembers, even though we lived there only until he was 3. When I married Benjamin, we moved to a bigger apartment. I'm sorry, thank you, Mom. And thank you too, Dad. Looking us straight in the eye, Mateo's words revealed the kind and unchanged face of my son. I'm really sorry. I'll think it over again. We'll plan a wedding that we can manage together. Wait a minute. It was Grace who interrupted, speaking up for the first time in front of us. We're not changing the plan. I actually want to add more options. I have so many things I want to do. Yelling at Mateo, her demeanor was the complete 180-degree change from the demure image she had presented. Selfish, hysterical, and self-centered. You live so modestly, you must have saved more. It's your son's wedding, you should contribute. She then turned her fury on me. Although I wasn't surprised, hearing her words again confirmed that she was wrong. Confirmed she was indeed outrageous. After sighing, I decided to speak my mind. As Mateo had mentioned earlier, shouldn't you consider the range of your savings and the money I gave? Are you kidding me? A wedding that is so poor is worse than not having one at all. Well, then maybe you shouldn't have one. No way. If there's no wedding, then there's no point in getting married. It was completely illogical. I wondered how to make her listen. How much is the current estimate for the wedding? $160,000. What? How much can you two contribute? Suddenly, Grace stopped talking. She shifted her gaze to Mateo. I can only manage $20,000, Grace said. It's impossible for me. If your family is wealthy, why not ask them for support? Grace's parents have said they won't give any money. She said they told her she should understand why. Weren't they a wealthy family? Yet they refused to contribute to their daughter's wedding. Benjamin and I exchanged puzzled looks, both tilting our heads in confusion. Eager to hear the reason, all three of us stared at Grace, who made a face as if she had bitten into a sour grape. Grace, it's impossible, I said. Why? I overspent a little. On what? Dad's credit card. In response to Mateo's questions, Grace gradually explained. To summarize, Grace had been given a family credit card by her father, which she used for shopping as if it were her allowance. However, her spending became increasingly extravagant and she maxed out the credit card limit. Her parents were furious when they found out. Realizing they had spoiled her too much, they decided not to give her any more money, regardless of the situation, and to make her experience earning her own money. They managed to get her a job at the same company as Mateo through family connections. Nevertheless, it seemed Grace hadn't saved any money at all. Living at home, Grace shouldn't be paying any living expenses, but it seemed hard for her to break the habit of spending money like water. Under these circumstances, her parents had decided not to contribute financially to her wedding. It seemed they believed this would continue until Grace developed a more typical sense of money management, but for now they thought it was impossible. So $160,000 was out of the question. That's why Mateo's family should just pay for it. Mateo pressed his forehead weakly and murmured, but Grace, on the other hand, confronted him loudly. I told you, I can't marry someone who doesn't share my financial values. If you don't have money, there's no point in being married. I have no use for a poor person. Grace became furious at Mateo's honest remark. It must have been the last thing she wanted to hear. She went around calling other people's families poor, but it's not funny that she's actually the poorest. Anyway, let's apologize properly. Of course, I have to apologize too. If you don't have money, I don't need you. I'm getting a divorce. So, Grace's attitude seemed like nothing but whining, and Mateo's responses were becoming duller. I guess it must be tiring when the conversation isn't going anywhere. Why did you marry Mateo, Grace? I decided to ask what I wanted to know. It seems she can answer questions. I wanted to marry someone from the same company. Why someone from the same company? If you marry someone from the same company, you can quit your job, right? I see. It was common in the past for women to quit their jobs when they married a coworker. I wonder if that culture still exists in Mateo and Grace's company. I don't want to work anymore. If I get married, I can quit. I can't quit right now because of the wedding guests, but I'll quit right after the wedding. It feels like something's wrong, but at least I understood that Grace's parents' feelings are not getting through to her. It's quite unfortunate. And why did you always whisper to Mateo and let him do the talking? I was simply curious. I couldn't understand why she did that. Because I didn't want to talk to someone who seemed poor. I didn't want to be associated with poverty. Besides, they'll listen if it's their son talking. I was oddly impressed to realize that there really are people who say things like this. At this point, it seems beyond redemption. Grace, can you explain this? I took an envelope from the shelf behind me, spread its contents on the table, and addressed Grace. There were several photos. In all of them, Grace was pictured, but she was arm in arm or embracing men other than Mateo. Moreover, each man was different. Grace, what's this about? I want to know what this is about, too. Grace was taken aback by Mateo's question, but I wasn't going to let it go. This is evidence of your affair, isn't it? What? Did you hire a detective or something? Spot on. I remembered hearing Grace say to Mateo, "Divorce if you don't cut ties with your family." I wondered why she was so quick to threaten divorce. The difference between her behavior in front of us and in private was too great, so I simply thought it was suspicious. That's why I hired a detective to investigate her behavior, including infidelity, and it was a hit. Or should I say a miss. She appeared to be involved with several men, hiding the fact that she was married. Are you keeping these men around to get gifts from them? Exactly. If I can't buy it myself, I have to get someone else to buy it for me. Is there a need to go to hotels? Shut up! It's none of your business. Grace seemed reckless, not even trying to hide anything. It does concern me. Mateo spoke in a low voice. Grace visibly flinched, but she quickly regained composure and glared at Mateo with a sharp look. We're getting a divorce. Of course. I'll be asking for alimony too. Why? You should be able to figure that out. Mateo glared back at her. At the firmness of Mateo's stance, Grace seemed to be at a loss for words and stood up abruptly. I'm leaving. I can't stand this anymore. And with that, Grace stomped out, her footsteps echoing as she left. We heard the front door close, and we all let out a big sigh. Afterward, Mateo and Grace's divorce was finalized without a hitch. Although Mateo demanded alimony, the likelihood of it being paid in full was slim. More pressing was the debt incurred from the expensive bags and shoes Grace had insisted on when they got married. Grace was the primary debtor, but Mateo had unfortunately become a co-signer. Given the current situation, it looked like Grace was heading towards bankruptcy, which meant all the debt repayment would fall on Mateo's shoulders. Moreover, as a co-signer, he could be asked to pay it all at once. Consulting a lawyer, it seemed manageable through debt restructuring, so that was the plan. Even though they were divorced, the obligation to repay the debt didn't disappear. It's a sad story, paying off a huge debt for a woman he didn't even love, but it's an expensive lesson learned. All I did was have a lawyer send letters to Grace's various flings. The letter implied, "Looks like you might be liable for the debt Grace accumulated during her marriage. Are you okay with that, considering the affair?" This revealed Grace's misdeeds to her flings, who then came to the office demanding repayment for all they had spent, causing a commotion that made the company aware of the situation. Furthermore, it came to light that Grace had been making fraudulent expense claims at work, leading to her termination. Abandoned by her family, Grace now lives alone in a cheap, old apartment, seemingly in a depressive state. And home. Welcome back. Dinner's ready soon. Yay! Dinner's ready soon. Yay! Dinner's ready soon. Yay! Dinner's ready soon. Zo. Dinner's ready soon. Yay! 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 I'm gonna wash my hands. After his divorce, Mateo started visiting home occasionally, spending time with the family like before. Truth be told, I was pretty upset about the whole situation with Mateo, and had thought about banning him from the house for a while. But when Mateo came to our house alone after everything, he deeply apologized, saying, "I'm truly sorry." His apology didn't mean everything was forgiven, but I still had some anger. "It's okay. Mila and I both love you, Mateo," Benjamin said with a big smile, so I couldn't stay mad any longer. And things felt normal again. "Is the debt repayment done?" "Yeah, I managed it with my savings. I'm broke now, though." "You did well to pay it off, Mateo." I turned pale every time I remembered it. But well, it's a lesson learned from my own mistakes. We chatted over dinner and Mateo managed a wry smile. Despite the tough times he had been through, accepting and overcoming his mistakes, seeing him able to talk about it like this, made me feel that my son had grown as a person. "Mom, is there more food?" "Sure is." Living with just Benjamin and occasionally having Mateo come over, I felt happy that the three of us could spend time together, just like before. "To invite me on a day like this, what a terrible daughter you are. Your mom would be sad. But we won't see each other for a while after this. And at least for now, we can forget the sadness." On the day of my mother's funeral, I peeked into the family room and saw my husband and sister entangled, with their lower bodies exposed. "I'll make you forget your sorrow just for now." I feel bad for Emma. Although I couldn't see her face, I could feel a faint smile in my sister's voice. It's okay, she's strong. And compared to Isabella, no matter how much she cries, she'll just look ugly to me. Hey, she's still my sister, you know. I couldn't forgive the two of them laughing softly together, and in that moment, I was ready to burst open the door. I almost dropped the smartphone I was holding. But the next words from my sister stopped me in my tracks. No way. It can't be true. My anger, the trembling of my hands, the pounding of my heart, all rapidly calmed down. I'll never forgive them. Just like when I entered, I quietly left the room. I had no doubts about what I was about to do. I didn't care if my sister's life was over. After all, I'll never forgive her for as long as I live. I am Emma Smith, 25 years old. I work in product development for a cosmetics company. I'm really fulfilled, having landed a job I was interested in. Last year, I married John, whom I'd been dating since college. We met as members of the same tennis club at university. Hey, why did you choose this club, Emma? Wasn't there another tennis club? Yeah, I heard the other one was more about social drinking. I probably wouldn't get along with people who are into that. Plus, I genuinely wanted to enjoy tennis. Really? Me too. I'm basically introverted, so I'm not great with people. During the welcome event in the year following my enrollment, I had a chance to talk to John, who happened to sit next to me. John seemed nervous talking to women, so without such occasions, we might never have spoken until graduation. To me, he was a rare case of a guy I clicked with. After that day, we started talking and playing tennis together whenever we met, and eventually, it turned into a relationship. I was John's first girlfriend, but I could see why he hadn't had one before. John, you're tall and not bad looking, so why don't you pay more attention to fashion? Eh? I'm just not interested in fashion. Anything's fine as long as I can wear it. I don't care what others say. Even though his anything-goes attitude would be admitted, John was honestly quite unfashionable. After we started dating, I took him shopping and introduced him to my regular hair salon, where he used to cut his own hair. Being over 6 feet tall, John easily became a handsome man with just these changes. Sometimes, other girls showed interest in John, but his introverted nature kept them at bay, and our relationship continued smoothly. 2 years into our career lives, John proposed. At a restaurant with a nighttime view, he casually took out a ring and said in the most straightforward way, "Will you marry me?" It was so typically John, and I was delighted. However, I had one worry about getting married. It was the presence of my sister Isabella, who is 2 years older than me. So far, Isabella had mocked every friend or partner I brought home as uncool. If I brought home someone I wanted to marry, I was sure she would make me feel terrible again. I felt this way, and it weighed heavily on my mind. Isabella and I probably were different types. Isabella, resembling our mother, had a look of an adorable face with plump lips, and she hung out with flashy, outgoing friends. As for me, I resembled my father with a clean-cut and masculine face and thin lips. I'm a science-minded girl with fair skin and silver-rimmed glasses. Although we were similar in height and build, our vibes were entirely opposite. Emma, you should get surgery to plump up your lips when you're older. With that face, cute clothes just won't suit you. Leave me alone. I'm not even bothered by it right now. You're really not cute, you know? Both your face and personality are too harsh. I've been ridiculed by my sister Isabella about my appearance since I was in elementary school, so we've never been close. Isabella's cunning trait is that she is quick to judge and criticize others based on their appearance. Cunning trait is that she makes her insults sound like jokes in front of others. Even her parents probably don't realize she's seriously mocking me. If she said such things in front of John, it would be devastating. To shake off these gloomy thoughts, I cheerfully called my parents. When John and I visited my parents' home to formally announce our marriage, Isabella, who got married 3 years ago, was eagerly waiting for us. Of course, Isabella's husband William was there too. Isabella and her husband live near William's parents' home, about an hour away by Amtrak. Hello, I'm John Smith, dating Emma. I promise to make Emma truly happy. Please be kind to us. Hey John, no need to be so nervous. We won't bite. We're just thankful someone's willing to date Emma. From the first greeting, my parents were laughing at John's nervousness, and the atmosphere was lively and fun. John, dressed in a proper suit and well-groomed, even looked great to me, who's been with him for years. "John, what do you do for work?" "Oh, I'm a systems engineer." "Wow, really? That's cool." Unusually, Isabella was being nice to my fiancé. She had always mocked my friends and partners as uncool. Well, John did look tall, handsome, and absolutely stunning today. Seeing the sparkle in Isabella's eyes, I felt a sense of superiority for the first time. Looking back, maybe the countdown to the end had already started then. Though you hear systems engineer and it's like gibberish to you, isn't it, sis? Stop it. Emma, you always make fun of me. But seriously, I have no clue about systems. Sorry. I don't understand it either. What kind of work is it? Dad and William were laughing heartily, and John seemed to be enjoying himself throughout. My parents have a great relationship, the ideal couple for me. I hope John and I can be like them someday. In the evening, as Isabella and her husband were about to leave, we decided to have dinner together while driving them to the station. Hey, how about the four of us go on a trip? Maybe next year? What do you think, William? It was the first time Isabella had invited us on a trip. Perhaps she had matured while we were distant after her marriage. Yeah, that sounds good. We'd be happy to get along with Emma and John's family. Yes. William is a bit on the plump side, a gentle man with a soft demeanor. Honestly, I was surprised when he first came to greet us. No offense, but he wasn't the type I'd have expected for Isabella. I guess love and marriage are different things. I thought, oddly satisfied with this. With this realization, I had hoped that as adults, my relationship with Isabella would improve, but that was a big mistake. For our first New Year's after marriage, we planned to spend the holidays with John's parents first, and then visit my family. Isabella had also returned home, but William had to leave earlier due to a prior commitment. Hey, since we're all here, let's go to the New Year's countdown together, Isabella suggested. Leaving our parents who wanted to stay at home, the three of us headed to a nearby city center. As we got close to the city, even though there was some time before the countdown, it was still bustling with lots of people. It's crowded. We better not get separated, Isabella said, intertwining her arm with my husband John's. In that moment, I saw John's face turn bright red. It's not a big city, even with the crowd. Getting lost isn't really a concern. It's nice to have someone tall beside you. It feels secure, I thought to myself, feeling irritated by Isabella's sweet voice. But I didn't want to start the new year feeling bad, so I kept quiet. In the end, Isabella stayed arm in arm with John all the way from the city to home. I was also annoyed by John's smitten face. When we got back, my mom was busy preparing for relatives coming over in the afternoon. Hey, do you mind coming shopping with me? I want to buy a gift for William. Plus, it might be cheaper with the New Year's sale, Isabella asked. Sure. What about you, Emma? I wanted to help out my busy mom since I was finally home. I'll stay. Isabella, our uncles are coming soon, so come back quickly, I said. I know. I'll just borrow John for a bit, Isabella said with a smirk, taking John's arm and leaving. Seeing her like that, even my mom had a wry smile. It's like you've got a cute little brother now, my mom joked. But aside from my mom's words, Isabella's behavior seemed more like a girlfriend than a sister. 3 hours later, Isabella still hadn't returned, having taken John around with her. They had become overly friendly, and even after returning, they kept close, chatting non-stop. The most irritating part was when John said in the car on the way back, "Isabella is really cute, isn't she?" I never expected to be this irritated right from the start of the year. I thought I would never return home for the holidays again. Then, in early spring, almost forgetting these events, I got a call from Isabella. Hey, how about we all go on a trip this May? It was the trip she had invited us on before we got married. The unpleasant memories of New Year's instantly came back. As I stayed silent, the voice on the phone changed to William's. As a wedding gift, I'll cover the travel expenses. Emma, is there anywhere you want to go? Unable to refuse William, we ended up planning a one-night trip to a hot springs spa. I think Isabella married William because he worked at a top-tier company. Yes, William comes from a wealthy family. Despite being in their late 20s with no children, Isabella quit her job right after marriage to become a housewife. I only have a sister, so having a cute little brother like John makes me really happy. Using the term brother as if it were a free pass, Isabella held John's hand and looped her arm through his during the trip. William, look! Don't I look like a kid next to John? Isabella was excited while John looked embarrassed. William and I followed them. I wanted to relax at the inn, but to my dismay, Isabella had booked a room for 4. When we drank in the evening, Isabella leaned drunkenly on John. What really angered me was that John seemed pleased by it. Hey sis, don't get too clingy with John. It's disrespectful to William. Ah, are you jealous, Emma? You have your cute moments. Couples should be close like us, right, William? I wanted to yell at her, but Isabella kept clinging to William, playing the loving couple. She was a genius at irritating me. When I got home and complained to John, he said, I can't be rude to Emma's sister, right? It's really a problem, I said, with a troubled yet slightly amused expression. Inside me, there was a swirling, dark mass of frustration that just wouldn't go away. Now I understand it was my intuition kicking in. It was about a year after we got married, when my mom had an accident. I got a call from my dad during work. Your mom's been in an accident. She's in critical condition. I could hear the tremble in my dad's voice over the phone. Mom had been on a trip with a close aunt since yesterday. The aunt who was driving also suffered severe injuries, including to her chest. They were close to home when the accident happened, and Mom was taken to a local hospital. Isabella returned home to help with the housework so Dad could be by Mom's side. Emma must be worried too, right? I'll take care of things here, so you should be with your mom as much as possible. Thank you. I'll go to the hospital right after work until Mom wakes up. John's kindness and love supported my anxious heart. At that moment, I was truly grateful for being married. But 5 days later, without our prayers being answered, Mom passed away. Sadly, she never regained consciousness. Why does she have to go before me? I at least wanted to say thank you one last time. Dad, unable to accept reality, didn't cry out loud, but quietly said this, holding Mom's hand. His grief-stricken figure was so sad, I couldn't cry out loud either, just quietly wiping my tears. Next to me, Isabella cried loudly as if crying for both of us. With Dad in a daze, I took charge of arranging the funeral. Due to the suddenness, we decided on a small family-only funeral at a nearby funeral home. The wake was the next day. After the meal following the service, Dad, Isabella, John and I stayed overnight at the funeral home to spend the last night with Mom. William returned home once and would come back in the morning with his parents for the farewell ceremony. It doesn't feel real that she's gone. Yeah, it's true. Just the other day she said she was bringing back souvenirs from her trip. While checking the flowers weren't wilting, we spent our last night with Mom. The family room for the overnight stay had a space with a sofa and table at the front and bedrooms at the back. Although there were 4 beds, Dad probably wouldn't lie down. I feel sick. Maybe it's because I haven't slept since yesterday. I'm gonna get some fresh air. It's dangerous to go out alone at night. Emma, I'll go with Isabella, so please take care of your father. Okay? Please take care of my sister. On this day, ours was the only wake at the funeral home, and after the staff left, it was just us there. It felt even quieter after the staff left and John and Isabella went out. They returned after about 2 hours, bringing warm hot dogs from a convenience store. The next morning, we had a light breakfast and got ready, but there was still an hour and a half until the 10 a.m. start time. While the staff began preparations, Dad, like last night, sat beside Mom's portrait, lost in thought. Soon, I was supposed to do the final check of the funeral arrangements with the director. I had planned to include Isabella in the discussion, but when I looked around, she was nowhere to be found. I walked around the funeral home, but both Isabella and John had disappeared. Maybe she felt unwell again? With that thought, I decided to peek into the family room. As I reached for the doorknob, I heard a sound like a cat's meow from inside and felt a sudden jolt of shock. My heart started pounding heavily. A bad feeling crept over me, and when I slowly turned the doorknob, I found it locked from the inside. No way! I had been in charge of the funeral arrangements and had the key to the room. Quietly, I inserted the key into the lock and turned it. The lock clicked open with a small noise, but strange sounds continued to come from inside. Stepping silently into the family room, I noticed the door was sloppily closed, leaving a gap of about 4 inches. "Isabella," I heard John's voice from behind the door, making my heart leap. I knew in my head it was John with my sister. Still, part of me had hoped it would be William who arrived early. How could this be happening? Feeling like I was about to collapse, I quietly exited without making a sound. Taking a deep breath, I decided to attempt recording with my smartphone. Peeking through the gap in the door, I saw John and Isabella entangled, with their lower bodies exposed. To invite me on a day like this, what a terrible daughter you are. Your mother would be sad, but we won't see each other for a while after this. And at least for now, we can forget the sadness. Despite the upcoming funeral, I found Isabella's behavior, seducing someone else's husband with a sly face, utterly disgusting. Even if it's just for now, I'll make you forget your sorrow. I feel bad for Emma. I couldn't see her face, but I felt a hint of laughter in her voice. Thinking they must have been intimate somewhere last night too, my chest tightened. It's okay, she's strong. And compared to Isabella, John's words pierced my heart that had trusted him. I couldn't forgive the two of them laughing softly together, and in that moment I was ready to burst open the door. I almost dropped the smartphone I was holding, but then Isabella's next words made my hand stop dead. But we have to thank Mom, don't we? Thanks to her, I got to spend 5 days with John. I wish she could have held on a bit longer, though. Your mother was on our side, huh? From now on, pretend to worry about your father and come back home. Hee John, you're such a bad boy. Were the accident and Mom's death just a lucky incident for them? Was John's kindness all this time just a lie to meet Isabella? All my anger, the trembling of my hands, and the pounding of my heart rapidly calmed down. I'll never forgive them. As I left the room, I heard Isabella's sweet voice saying one more time behind me. I had no doubts about what I was about to do. Even if Isabella's life ended, it wouldn't matter. After all, I'll never forgive her for as long as I live. Leaving the family room, I immediately headed to my father. By my father's side were already the family of the aunt who had been in the accident with my mother. I whispered to my father and decided to take the extended family to the family room. As we were heading there, the elevator doors opened, and Isabella's husband William's family and John's parents came out together. Emma, are you okay? We came early to help out if needed. Surrounded by such kind people, I couldn't help but feel sad. Thank you. I'm sorry to bother you right after arriving, but I quickly explained the situation, and we all quietly entered the family room. Then I threw open the doors with both hands as hard as I could. Bang! The doors swung open and then slightly bounced back. On the disheveled sheets, John and Isabella, though clothed, were frozen in an embrace. I addressed my husband with a cold gaze. John, what are you doing? He scrambled away from Isabella and stood up. Spotting his parents among the relatives behind me, he was visibly shocked. Ah, no, this is not what it looks like. I felt sick, and John was just comforting me. Yes, that's right. Isabella has been feeling unwell since yesterday. Isabella and John were desperate. Not only their spouses, but also both sets of parents and relatives were present. Emma, you must be misunderstanding something. John was only caring for me. I'm sorry if I caused any confusion. I apologize. Everyone, still unable to fully grasp the situation, furrowed their brows in confusion. With my mother's funeral about to begin, they couldn't believe such a thing was happening. Indeed, this situation could be misunderstood. But Emma, would John really cheat on a day like this? William's parents nodded in agreement. Seeing this, Isabella's face showed a hint of relief. I'm truly sorry. I've always thought of John as a dear brother. Maybe Emma is jealous of how close John and I are, and mistook it for cheating. Her lips curled slightly, as if she was sure of her victory. My father put his arm around my shoulder. So it's all just a misunderstanding? Yes, of course. We wouldn't do such a thing on the day of my mother's funeral. That's silly. Isabella, perhaps relieved, even had a faint smile on her face, then explained this misunderstanding. I played the video I had recorded earlier, with the volume turned up. The suppressed sounds echoed through the room. Stop it, Emma. Stop it right now. When I paused the video, William rushed over and grabbed Isabella by the collar. Isabella's face turned pale all at once. William, this is a mistake. Something's wrong. Emma, please explain to them. Isabella's eyes were desperately seeking my help. I didn't understand why she thought I would help her. As William turned to look at me, I just shrugged. He probably wanted to hit John. With a heavy sigh, William let go of Isabella. I've tolerated your selfishness up until now because I thought it was cute. But sleeping with your brother-in-law is unacceptable. With your sister's husband, especially on the day of your mother's funeral, that's beyond the pale. It's worse than a dog's behavior. William, it's not like that. I was just shocked about Mom and got carried away. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I can't do this anymore. We're getting a divorce. Isabella collapsed onto the floor. At that moment, I pressed play on the video again. It was the part one couldn't forgive. The conversation between Isabella and John played out. But we have to thank Mom, don't we? I gotta spend 5 days with John. I wish she could have held on a bit longer, though. Looks like your mother was on our side. From now on, pretend to worry about your father and come back home. I could feel my father's hand on my shoulder tighten. He let go of my shoulder and approached Isabella in silence. Slap. Even though it was an open hand, Isabella's body spectacularly flew across the room and landed on the floor. What do you mean shocked and carried away? Someone like you doesn't deserve to attend Mom's funeral. Get out now. As my father's roar echoed, John was also sent flying. My father-in-law had punched him. Dad, it's not like that. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Let me stay here. Let me apologize to Mom. Isabella cried and begged, but my father silenced her with another slap. She let out a cry indescribable as a scream or a shout and collapsed on the bed, sobbing. John knelt beside her, but the two were dragged out by the entire family. Emma, please. I was just seduced by your sister. Cut me. Incredibly, even in this situation, John reached out to me, begging. I was just disgusted. I didn't feel anything but contempt. I coldly brushed him off. Don't touch me with your filthy hands. Get out, you're a stranger now. Shocked by my words, John was led away, his mouth agape. From behind the door, Isabella's cries for Mom could be heard, but no one spoke another word as we headed to the chapel for the funeral service. John and I divorced soon after. He, with his tear-stained face, was forced by his parents to prepare the papers without objection. The alimony was paid in one lump sum by his parents, well above the going rate, without involving lawyers. From now on, his salary would be managed by his parents until he repaid them. Isabella and William also divorced soon after. Stop bringing shame upon us more than now. My father's words left Isabella unable to resist. She was probably shocked to see our gentle father, who never raised his voice, so angry. So angry, the alimony was paid by my father, but he didn't allow Isabella to return home. Isabella's life, once comfortably lived on William's money, drastically changed. She started working day shifts and night shifts to repay my father. I knew she was working to pay him back quickly. Isabella's only thought now is to quickly finish repaying the debt, as she doesn't know any other way to apologize to our father. Isabella keeps contacting me, but I ignore all her attempts. She's not even allowed to know where our mother's headstone is, so she can't even apologize to her. This must be the hardest punishment for her. By not forgiving her, I hope my sister lives with regret for the rest of her life. I have returned home and am spending peaceful days with my father. Recently, he finds solace in visiting places filled with memories of my mother. Even after her passing, my parents remain the ideal couple for me. Right now, I'm focused on my work, but I do hope to find a wonderful partner someday. My name is Emily, I'm 43 years old, and run an aesthetic salon. I divorced my husband Sam 5 years ago. The reason for our divorce was his affair. At that time, Sam won over our then 13-year-old daughter Kelly, completely siding with him. He asked me for a divorce, saying he wanted to marry his mistress, Barbara. Having been troubled by Sam's infidelity for so long, I was ready to agree as long as I could keep custody of Kelly. However, my world shattered with Kelly's words. I want to live with Dad and my new mom. Get out. Sam followed, demanding, just sign the divorce papers already. Cornered and meticulously outmaneuvered, I had no choice but to sign. 5 years later, Kelly suddenly visited my salon. It had been 5 years since I last saw her, and she greeted me with a smile, saying, "Mom." She was now 18. Shocked, I blurted out, "Who are you?" Kelly looked confused too. Seeing her drastically changed appearance made me wonder what had happened over these 5 years. Why did she choose to go with Sam and not me? I learned for the first time that Sam had lured her with promises of clothes and makeup, saying things like, "I won't nag you about studying like your mom does." Realizing how distant our current situation was from the past, I started plotting my revenge. Kelly, now 18, had gained a lot of weight and lost her sense of style, becoming a rather unappealing young woman. Despite her age, she seemed unconcerned about how others saw her. Just 5 years ago, she was a charming, sparkling 13-year-old, already showing great potential. She had even aspired to become a model. Kelly had aspired to be a model, with the ideal height of 5 feet 5 inches, long limbs, and a slender figure. She was on the verge of landing modeling gigs in magazines and used to share makeup and fashion tips with me. Kelly had a certain aura about her, but now it seemed to have disappeared. I couldn't help but wonder what could have caused such a drastic change. What could have possibly happened to Kelly to make her change so drastically? As I put the pieces of the puzzle together, it became clear that Barbara, Sam's new wife, played a significant role. At first, Barbara treated Kelly kindly, most likely because Sam needed custody of Kelly in order to divorce me and marry Barbara. Barbara had to befriend Kelly in order to marry Sam. I couldn't help but think that marrying someone with a teenager is a huge burden, but Barbara's desire to take Sam away from me was stronger. That's why she tried to win Kelly over to her side. Kelly was so close to me, but it was her femininity that captivated Barbara. Kelly was determined to become a model and worked diligently towards that goal. She collected affordable cosmetics, studied makeup techniques, and even posted on TikTok. Being in middle school, she couldn't afford expensive cosmetics or clothes. That's where Sam and Barbara stepped in, whispering sweet nothings to Kelly. For a girl her age, it was tempting bait. To Kelly, Barbara must have seemed like a kind older sister. At 27, Barbara was too young to be a mother figure, but Kelly saw her as a potential friend. I supported Kelly's interest in fashion and self-improvement, but I was strict about her studies. Kelly argued that models don't need education, but I still wanted her to go to college. She disagreed with me on that, which probably led her to choose Sam and me. I had a feeling that was the case. I thought Dad and Barbara were kind at first. They bought me clothes and expensive cosmetics and didn't nag me about studying. But within a year, things changed. Dad seemed to have run out of money, and Barbara's attitude towards me completely changed. If that was the case, you should have come back to me. I was waiting for you. After saying such awful things and driving me away, how could I? Besides, Dad said you didn't want me back. That's not true. I didn't want to let go during the divorce, but I had no choice. Kelly chose Dad over me. I felt my own powerlessness anew, realizing the pain I had caused Kelly. Kelly probably didn't want a divorce in the first place. It must have been tough for her, especially at such a sensitive age, to see her parents split and her father remarry a younger woman. What exactly changed? Kelly then started to reveal bit by bit. The turning point in Barbara's behavior was when Kelly was scouted by talent agents while out with Barbara, and not just once. Once or twice, but quite frequently, Barbara, who used to be scouted herself, felt jealous. She took away all of Kelly's cosmetics, destroying them with water. You seriously think you can be a model? You're not exceptionally beautiful or unique, just average. It's not a world where effort alone can get you there. So it turned out that her cosmetics were really taken away. Barbara didn't stop there. She started making high-calorie dishes, mostly carb-heavy meals. Since Barbara wasn't a great cook, she mostly bought ready-made meals. By then, Sam was losing interest in Barbara and would come home late. Family dinners became rare. Kelly, in her growing years, had always restrained her diet to maintain her figure. But suddenly, her appetite took over, perhaps due to emotional stress. Barbara kept pushing Kelly down. You know, Kelly, you're not a great figure. You might think you're cute, but you're just another face in the crowd. Kelly's self-confidence eroded, resorting to eating for comfort and then regretting it, a negative cycle that eventually led her to become reclusive. Kelly struggled with her studies. I believe that Barbara's manipulation contributed significantly to Kelly's loss of will. Why did you ask who I was the moment you saw me? I knew it was you, but you were so surrounded by negative vibes, I couldn't find the words. Have I really changed that much? Kelly wondered if she had really changed that much. Remember you wanted to be a model until 5 years ago? I did, but Barbara said it was impossible, and eating became my only joy. Barbara's intentions were too obvious, still wanting to be the star of her own story. Barbara, once the top dancer in a nightclub, had Sam frequently visit her. Despite the age gap of 16 years and the challenges of being a step-family, Sam and Barbara married. I learned from the staff at Sam's salon that Barbara had multiple cosmetic surgeries and breast augmentations. Even though we were married, Sam was always out with Barbara. During the divorce discussions, Sam deliberately brought Barbara along. Well, if we were to divorce, I would have to leave the house. And in a way, it seemed like a natural right for Barbara. I can't forget her triumphant face at that time. Are you upset? Sam likes beautiful things, doesn't he? As an aesthetic salon owner, you might be young and beautiful compared to others your age. But of course, he chose me for my youth, the title of being #1, and beauty, right? Do you understand Sam's infidelity? You'll be cheated on soon. Sam always wants youth. Once you're over 30, he'll lose interest. If you're prepared for that, go ahead. You're just making excuses for losing. It's quite unbecoming, you know. Just so you know, Sam hits on every woman who walks into the salon. You'll be the one cleaning up his messes. Are you okay with that? Sam's fondness for women was well known, especially how he'd hit on new female staff at his beauty salon. This led to many new hires quitting early, burdened by their troubles and hurt feelings. I often ended up being their outlet for complaints. When they couldn't bear Sam's behavior anymore, they'd come to me, unable to confront him directly. I became a sort of buffer for them. Some even talked about suing, so I tried to settle things amicably with money. Sam was much tougher on male staff, which led to them quitting quickly too. His salon was a parade of power and sexual harassment, and it was a wonder it hadn't shut down yet. Eventually, it was just Sam and one long-term male employee running the place. Even then, the salon wasn't exactly booming. Barbara is indeed beautiful, but it's all artificial, right? Lips, eyes, nose, bone structure, teeth, breasts, all cosmetic surgery, right? It must be tough maintaining all that, I said, accepting or rather coming to terms with Sam and Barbara's marriage. 5 years on, Barbara seemed to be in trouble. To keep the fickle and capricious Sam, she was getting more and more surgeries. Even to the untrained eye, her face looked unnatural. It was obvious she'd had work done. Her face seemed stretched, and she had trouble moving her mouth, almost like a cyborg. Barbara was always afraid of being abandoned by Sam. Thankfully, Kelly hadn't been influenced by Barbara and stayed away from plastic surgery. But from what Kelly told me, Barbara was having money troubles. Saving money takes time, but spending it happens in a flash. Barbara had spent so much on luxury brands and surgeries that she was nearly broke. Of course, she relied on Sam's money. She didn't really know how much he earned, just assumed he was rich because he spent a lot at the nightclub. Kelly shared her views on their financial habits. I think Dad and Barbara were both big spenders. Dad loved cars, and Barbara always took taxis, even for short distances. Sometimes the drivers would even complain. They'd buy clothes without looking at the price tags, many of which were never worn. At first, they bought things for me too, but it soon became clear they thought it was a waste to spend on me. Actually, I think Dad is almost broke. I revealed. Kelly looked surprised. His salon hardly gets any customers now. He can't even pay the remaining staff, and now he's buried in debt. The bank won't lend him money anymore, so I bought his salon. Then Sam and Barbara burst in. I knew it, Kelly. I told you not to come here. Emily, did you fill her head with something? I was just telling her about buying your salon. You're broke, so how can you support Kelly? Nice going. Buying your ex-husband's salon for such a low price. Your salon was barely functioning. You're reaping what you sowed. You never valued your employees and now nobody values you. Do you have any idea how much I've had to cover for you behind the scenes? You were supposed to do that, right? I mean, you could only open your salon because I had mine, right? You forgot to be grateful for that and just went ahead and bought it, huh? I used to work at Sam's salon too. Yes, I ended up boldly taking the position of wife after Sam made advances towards me. I took care of shaving and extensions, not cutting hair. I performed these services on regular salon chairs, not beds. This became popular and I went on to study aesthetics seriously, eventually opening my own salon. Sure, Sam helped, but I worked hard in the competitive world of aesthetics. If you want your own place, why not open a nightclub? That way you can work surrounded by beautiful women. Only if you have the money. No big deal, Barbara can just go back to work. I didn't hear about this, and don't rely on me when you hardly come home. You came to me crying for money for your surgeries. I told you to keep it moderate, but you're addicted. Honestly, you're not beautiful anymore. As I heard, Sam and Barbara's relationship had already turned cold. Sam probably planned to leave her. But with his income gone, he had to turn to Barbara in panic. It's no surprise Barbara was angry. Even though Sam used to be a ladies' man, he's now 45 and past his prime. The only way for an aging man to stay attractive is to be wealthy. Sam, having lost both youth and wealth, wouldn't be of interest to anyone. Barbara must have run out of patience with him. Oh, I see. So you were dumped by that 20-something girl from the nightclub you've been all over recently, huh? What are you talking about? You've been cheating, haven't you? And it's been so obvious. That girl, she's been saying how useless you are behind your back. You don't spend much money and your gifts are cheap. It's pathetic to see a broke man trying to play around. Sam's face turned beet red. Clearly wounded in his pride. Have you looked in the mirror? Your face is monstrous. Barbara's face might indeed be unnatural and overdone, but it was all for keeping Sam's love. She took him from me, but now as his new wife, she feared being taken from as well. It seemed like karma to me. How much did you spend at that nightclub? The interest alone is like $6,000, right? Using up your credit card limit. Are you insane? You've used up all your cards, right? How do you plan to live now? Don't count on me. It's my money. I can do what I want. What about you? You're $100,000 in debt. You spent all your earnings from the nightclub on surgeries, then turned to loans when you ran out. You're not planning on making me deal with that, are you? Sam and Barbara's argument escalated, both fixated on money issues. No matter how much money you make, it's all gone on surgeries. What's the fun in wasting money on such trivial things? Trivial? That's rich coming from you. You go to nightclubs to get fawned over because nobody does that in your daily life. You spend big money just to be flattered, but that's their job. They're just working for you. And me, I'm just trying to stay beautiful. It's like shopping. Why is it wrong to want to look good? All men love beauty. The moment they meet you, they judge you by your looks. They say there's a $2 million lifetime difference in earnings between a beauty and an average person. Their hatred for each other was astounding, considering they once loved each other enough to marry. Your beauty theory is nonsense. You're $100,000 in debt. Deal with it yourself. The collection calls and notices are non-stop. What will you do now, former #1 dancer? Maybe work in a nightclub again? You're good at luring men, after all. It was hard to listen to their exchange, especially with 18-year-old Kelly present. Enough already. Take your financial issues with Sam and Barbara elsewhere. From what I've heard, isn't this all self-inflicted? If you don't spend within your means, isn't it obvious that this is how things end up? You have no right to talk. You took my business, and now tell me to fend for myself. Will you expect me to start over as an apprentice? If you're desperate enough, you can do anything. Just don't run away by declaring bankruptcy. I had something clear to say. Barbara, anything you want to say to me? You want an apology now? Ever since I was married to Sam, you've been bad-mouthing my salon. Social media. Even after you married him, it got worse. I don't care if it's jealousy or not, but enough is enough. You posted fake reviews and complaints, claiming my treatments ruined your skin, or made you gain weight. When will you be satisfied? Do you have proof that I wrote those? Barbara was defiant. Do you think there's no evidence? I've asked a lawyer to request disclosure. It's definitely you. I'll sue you for defamation. Sue me? Ridiculous, making a fuss over a few posts. If you're confident in your skills, stand tall. Maybe those negative reviews are genuine feedback. No matter what you say, I'll sue for defamation and demand a proper apology. Didn't you hear our conversation? I have no money. Your words made me realize I should declare bankruptcy. Then I won't have to pay, right? Can you stop being so defiant? It seems like you don't understand how difficult it is to declare bankruptcy. All your assets will be examined, you know? It takes an initial cost, and you need to come up with the money, even though you don't have it. That means you'll have to rely on your family, right? You were cut off from them, weren't you? After you dropped out of college to work at the nightclub without telling them. I'm planning to get $20,000 in damages from your parents through my lawyer. Wait, my parents have nothing to do with this. Please don't involve them. Things were just starting to improve between us after my marriage to Sam. I don't want to burden them with issues like defamation or debts. Barbara's sudden shift to a meek attitude, trying to garner sympathy, seemed manipulative. People like her struggle the most when their parents are brought into the matter. No, that excuse won't work. Stop avoiding responsibility. You need to face the consequences of your actions. You should learn firsthand the impact of slandering someone's company. You're only focused on your external appearance, but shouldn't you also work on your inner self? It's true what they say, character is reflected in one's face. Whatever a woman in her 40s says doesn't affect me. For men, a beautiful heart comes later. The face is what's most important. First impressions are everything. Women may prioritize looks, but that's not sustainable, is it? That's why Sam is already tired of you and ready to leave you, right? And I won't forgive you for the harm you caused Kelly. Am I to blame? Sam is her father. I did what I could as a stepmother. You influenced Kelly with all those negative things, leading her to become a recluse, didn't you? At this point, Sam's actions don't matter to me. What's important is holding Barbara accountable for the emotional damage she caused Kelly during her crucial developmental stage. Years, but Barbara stuttered, hesitating as if she wanted to say something, but couldn't. I wonder what she's hesitating about. Because Kelly was so cute. Kelly was too cute, so you made her look worse to keep her out of sight? That's just your selfish jealousy. You lack confidence in yourself, so you keep undergoing surgeries, but there's no end to that. You stifled Kelly's natural confidence and vitality with such a petty reason. No, it's because she started to look too much like Emily. That's why I couldn't stand it. Everyone was stunned by her unexpected admission. Sam, who was also responsible, had been silently watching but now interjected. It's natural for Kelly to resemble Emily, their mother and daughter. I've always hated Emily. Sam, being such a player, stayed with Emily for 15 years without breaking up. It made her seem special, different from other women. So when Sam divorced Emily and remarried me, I felt like I was on top of the world. I refused to hand over Kelly because I thought it would hurt Emily the most. Kelly was radiant, charming, and full of potential. I was jealous of her just for that, but as she grew, she started to resemble Emily more and more, so I was disgusted by her melodramatic act. This was irrelevant to Kelly, who was unfairly dragged into their ridiculous vendetta. It's a real nuisance for a child to be caught up in such petty matters. But the biggest scumbag here was Sam. He was silently observing, probably thinking his philandering was some sort of badge of honor. He probably thinks I'm so popular it's a problem, or stop fighting over me. He sees it as a badge of honor, which is what makes it so bad. Anyway, both of you stay out of my and Kelly's lives. Barbara, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Sam, you better find a new job quickly. I'm gonna make up for the lost 5 years with Kelly. After everything, Sam and Barbara ended up divorcing, having no reason or meaning to stay together. Sam was saddled with the $100,000 debt Barbara had accumulated for cosmetic surgeries during their marriage. He had to start over, finding a job from scratch. Though he had experience as a hairstylist, it was only viable in his own salon. Now he works as a low-level hairstylist by day and a security guard at night. After spending all day standing as a hairstylist, he stands yet again at night working as a security guard. A tough schedule for someone who always bragged about his youth. The debt won't wait, and he chose this path by marrying Barbara. Meanwhile, Barbara, with her crucial developmental years, stuttered and hesitated, unable to express what she wanted to say. I wonder what she's hesitating about. Was it because Kelly was so cute? Was she jealous of her? But she couldn't admit it. Instead, she underwent cosmetic surgeries, trying to boost her confidence. But it was never enough. She projected her insecurities onto Kelly, stifling her natural confidence and vitality. And when Kelly started to resemble Emily more and more, Barbara couldn't stand it. She was disgusted by her own actions, irrelevant to Kelly, who was unfairly dragged into their ridiculous vendetta. It's a real nuisance for a child to be caught up in such petty matters. But the biggest scumbag here was Sam. He was silently observing, probably thinking his philandering was some sort of badge of honor. He probably thinks I'm so popular it's a problem, or stop fighting over me. He sees it as a badge of honor, which is what makes it so bad. Anyway, both of you stay out of my and Kelly's lives. Barbara, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Sam, you better find a new job quickly. I'm gonna make up for the lost 5 years with Kelly. After everything, Sam and Barbara ended up divorcing, having no reason or meaning to stay together. Sam was saddled with the $100,000 debt Barbara had accumulated for cosmetic surgeries during their marriage. He had to start over, finding a job from scratch. Though he had experience as a hairstylist, it was only viable in his own salon. Now he works as a low-level hairstylist by day and a security guard at night. After spending all day standing as a hairstylist, he stands yet again at night, working as a security guard. A tough schedule for someone who always bragged about his youth. The debt won't wait, and he chose this path by marrying Barbara. Meanwhile, Barbara, with her crucial developmental years, stuttered and hesitated, unable to express what she wanted to say. I wonder what she's hesitating about. Was it because Kelly was so cute? Was she jealous of her? But she couldn't admit it. Instead, she underwent cosmetic surgeries, trying to boost her confidence, but it was never enough. She projected her insecurities onto Kelly, stifling her natural confidence and vitality. And when Kelly started to resemble Emily more and more, Barbara couldn't stand it. She was disgusted by her own actions, irrelevant to Kelly, who was unfairly dragged into their ridiculous vendetta. It's a real nuisance for a child to be caught up in such petty matters. But the biggest scumbag here was Sam. He was silently observing, probably thinking his philandering was some sort of badge of honor. He probably thinks I'm so popular it's a problem, or stop fighting over me. He sees it as a badge of honor, which is what makes it so bad. Anyway, both of you, stay out of mine and Kelly's lives. Barbara, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Sam, you better find a new job quickly. I'm going to make up for the lost 5 years with Kelly. After everything, Sam and Barbara ended up divorcing, having no reason or meaning to stay together. Sam was saddled with the $100,000 debt Barbara had accumulated for cosmetic surgeries during their marriage. He had to start over, finding a job from scratch. Though he had experience as a hairstylist, it was only viable in his own salon. Now he works as a low-level hairstylist by day and a security guard at night. After spending all day standing as a hairstylist, he stands yet again at night, working as a security guard. She was disgusted by her own actions, irrelevant to Kelly, who was unfairly dragged into their ridiculous vendetta. It's a real nuisance for a child to be caught up in such petty matters. But the biggest scumbag here was Sam. He was silently observing, probably thinking his philandering was some sort of badge of honor. He probably thinks I'm so popular it's a problem, or stop fighting over me. He sees it as a badge of honor, which is what makes it so bad. Anyway, both of you stay out of my and Kelly's lives. Barbara, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Sam, you better find a new job quickly. I'm gonna make up for the lost 5 years with Kelly. After everything, Sam and Barbara ended up divorcing, having no reason or meaning to stay together. Sam was saddled with the $100,000 debt Barbara had accumulated for cosmetic surgeries during their marriage. He had to start over, finding a job from scratch. Though he had experience as a hairstylist, It was only viable in his own salon. Now he works as a low-level hairstylist by day and a security guard at night. After spending all day standing as a hairstylist, he stands yet again at night working as a security guard. A tough schedule for someone who always bragged about his youth. The debt won't wait, and he chose this path by marrying Barbara. Meanwhile, Barbara, with her crucial developmental years, stuttered and hesitated, unable to express what she wanted to say. I wonder what she's hesitating about. Was it because Kelly was so cute? Was she jealous of her? But she couldn't admit it. Instead, she underwent cosmetic surgeries, trying to boost her confidence. But it was never enough. She projected her insecurities onto Kelly, stifling her natural confidence and vitality. And when Kelly started to resemble Emily more and more, Barbara couldn't stand it. She was disgusted by her own actions, irrelevant to Kelly, who was unfairly dragged into their ridiculous vendetta. It's a real nuisance for a child to be caught up in such petty matters. But the biggest scumbag here was Sam. He was silently observing, probably thinking his philandering was some sort of badge of honor. He probably thinks, I'm so popular, it's a problem, or stop fighting over me. He sees it as a badge of honor, which is what makes it so bad. Anyway, both of you stay out of my and Kelly's lives. Barbara, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Sam, you better find a new job quickly. I'm going to make up for the lost 5 years with Kelly. After everything, Sam and Barbara ended up divorcing, having no reason or meaning to stay together. Sam was saddled with the $100,000 debt Barbara had accumulated for cosmetic surgeries during their marriage. He had to start over, finding a job from scratch. Though he had experience as a hairstylist, it was only viable in his own salon. Now he works as a low-level hairstylist by day and a security guard at night. After spending all day standing as a hairstylist, he stands yet again at night working as a security guard. A tough schedule for someone who always bragged about his youth. The debt won't wait, and he chose this path by marrying Barbara. Meanwhile, Barbara, with her crucial developmental years, stuttered and hesitated, unable to express what she wanted to say. I wonder what she's hesitating about. Was it because Kelly was so cute? Was she jealous of her? But she couldn't admit it. Instead, she underwent cosmetic surgeries, trying to boost her confidence. But it was never enough. She projected her insecurities onto Kelly, stifling her natural confidence and vitality. And when Kelly started to resemble Emily more and more, Barbara couldn't stand it. She was disgusted by her own actions, irrelevant to Kelly, who was unfairly dragged into their ridiculous vendetta. It's a real nuisance for a child to be caught up in such petty matters. But the biggest scumbag here was Sam. He was silently observing, probably thinking his philandering was some sort of badge of honor. He probably thinks, I'm so popular it's a problem, or stop fighting over me. He sees it as a badge of honor, which is what makes it so bad. Anyway, both of you stay out of my and Kelly's lives. Barbara, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Sam, you better find a new job quickly. I'm gonna make up for the lost 5 years with Kelly. After everything, Sam and Barbara ended up divorcing, having no reason or meaning to stay together. Sam was saddled with the $100,000 debt Barbara had accumulated for cosmetic surgeries during their marriage. Instead, she underwent cosmetic surgeries, trying to boost her confidence. But it was never enough. She projected her insecurities onto Kelly, stifling her natural confidence and vitality. And when Kelly started to resemble Emily more and more, Barbara couldn't stand it. She was disgusted by her own actions, irrelevant to Kelly, who was unfairly dragged into their ridiculous vendetta. It's a real nuisance for a child to be caught up in such petty matters. But the biggest scumbag here was Sam. He was silently observing, probably thinking his philandering was some sort of badge of honor. And he probably thinks, I'm so popular, it's a problem, or stop fighting over me. He sees it as a badge of honor, which is what makes it so bad. Anyway, both of you stay out of my and Kelly's lives. Barbara, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Sam, you better find a new job quickly. I'm going to make up for the lost 5 years with Kelly. After everything, Sam and Barbara ended up divorcing, having no reason or meaning to stay together. Sam was saddled with the $100,000 debt Barbara had accumulated for cosmetic surgeries during their marriage. He had to start over, finding a job from scratch. Though, with her funds depleted, Barbara couldn't maintain her cosmetic surgeries. Her face deteriorated and she became unrecognizable, a far cry from her former self. During the day, she avoids public attention by wearing sunglasses and a mask, and at night, she works at a bar to make ends meet. This information from a former informant at the beauty salon. This skillful informant has now opened his own salon. Through my lawyer, I demanded $20,000 in damages from Barbara for defamation. Of course, she couldn't pay, so I approached her parents in the countryside. Despite speaking ill of her reckless lifestyle in the city, they apologized and paid the $20,000. Her parents seemed troubled by their daughter's actions in the city involving hostess clubs and defamation. I wonder what they would think if they saw her now. As of now, Barbara hasn't declared bankruptcy. I decided to let the matter rest with the $20,000 and want to cut ties with both her and Sam completely. However, since Sam is Kelly's father, I'll allow him to visit her. And now, Kelly has officially returned to me. If she hadn't had the courage to come to my shop back then, things could have been much worse. I've started a diet plan for her. Not too late. We're counting calories and going to the gym. I'm also thoroughly teaching her about makeup, nails, and hairstyles to enhance her femininity. With her natural potential, Kelly transformed astonishingly quickly. It seemed she was regaining her original spirit, and then she entered a before and after beauty contest I recommended, winning the grand prize. My name is Maria Johnson. I'm a 47-year-old housewife. When I was 30, I married Lucas, who is 3 years older than me. I have a daughter named Emma, and Lucas has a daughter named Raylan. We started living together with our stepchildren. 2 years into our marriage, my mother-in-law fell down the stairs and hurt her back. Because she required care, we had to start living with my husband's family. That's when my ordeal began. You're a stay-at-home mom, but you can't even do the housework properly. Your cooking always lacks flavor, and it's unsatisfying. I'd rather not eat than have such food. I thought I was cooking considering her health, ma'am. Since the beginning of our marriage, my mother-in-law seemed to have a poor impression of me. The main reason might be because I only graduated high school. I wasn't from a wealthy family and couldn't afford to go to college. I had no desire to attend college, so after graduating from a vocational high school, I joined a company specializing in web design. However, after getting married, at the insistence of Lucas and my mother-in-law, I became a full-time housewife. Lucas, on the other hand, graduated from a prestigious private university and works at a major IT company. We met through work. Initially, Lucas supported me, but gradually, he began to take his mother's side. Hey, the meal I made today was thrown away again. I'm trying to be mindful, because your mom is a bit overweight, and the doctor warned she might get diabetes. That's just being meddlesome. Let her eat what she likes. Besides, you're pretty inept. Mom's fed up with your incompetence. That's a harsh way to put it. But it's true, right? This is why I dislike women with only a high school education. And so Lucas started looking down on me for my education. Then Raylan began to mock me too. Having someone like you, a high school graduate, in the house makes me feel stupid. Hey, that's a rude way to talk to your mother. Mother? Who would think of someone like you, a lowlife, as a mother? My only parent is my successful father. Raylan was an excellent student, always maintaining top grades at school. She attended the top girls' school in the state. She consistently ranked in the top 10 throughout high school. And she was admitted to the same prestigious university as Lucas. She commuted to university from home. Meanwhile, Emma was in her final year of middle school. She was also working hard at her studies. One day, amidst my hectic daily life, I collapsed from overwork. I had to be hospitalized, though it was for a short period. When I returned home, Emma was the first to rush to me. Mom, are you okay now? Somehow. But the doctor said not to overdo things. Okay, if there's anything I can do, just let me know. Thanks. You're so kind. Emma had always been eager to help with household chores. But Lucas and Raylan did nothing. Even if I asked for help, I would only get complaints, so I had almost given up. But if things continue this way, I might collapse again. So I decided to call Lucas and Raylan for a discussion. Seriously, you get hospitalized and waste my money like that? That's no way to talk. I reached my physical limit. Collapsing from housework? You're really getting old. It wasn't just the housework, but also caring for your mom. It was tough, both physically and mentally. That kind of work suits a bottom feeder like you. Caregiving is meant for women at the bottom like you. What is that supposed to mean? As my husband continued to insult me even when I was unwell, my feelings shifted more from anger to disdain. I need you guys to help out a bit now. The doctor said I should rest for a while. What are you talking about? Unlike you, I'm busy every day studying at a prestigious university. But I'm not fully recovered yet, so it's difficult. Then why not just do nothing? What? If I did that, the house would be a mess. You can't handle it anyway, right? Just leave it be, brainless woman. Can't handle it anyway, right? Just leave it be, brainless woman. Then my husband started saying something outrageous. If you can't do it, why not make Emma do it? Let's make her quit high school and become a maid. That sounds like a good idea. What? What are you saying? They began to get excited about the idea of making Emma a maid. Looking at them, my decision became firmer. Fine, I'll take you up on that. They were stunned by my words. They didn't seem to understand what I meant. You said I could leave it be, right? Then I'll take Emma and leave this house. You two can get along fine together. Take care of your mom's caregiving yourselves. Then they started laughing, holding their stomachs. They didn't take my statement seriously. Please, are you planning to live on the streets with Emma? Don't worry about us. Maybe you should worry about yourselves. Who will do the housework and caregiving when I'm gone? Are you sure you can talk tough like that? Without Dad, you couldn't survive. Acting all high and mighty, you're just a leech. They seemed to think I couldn't live without my husband's salary. But I knew I could survive without him. Talking with them any longer just made me feel worse, so I ended the conversation and started preparing to leave. I soon talked to Emma about it. We're finally leaving this house. I was fed up with those two, so I'm actually glad. We don't need a father or sister like them. I was worried Emma might hesitate, but she accepted it readily. The next day, I took Emma and went back to my parents' house. I had explained the situation to them long ago, so they were sympathetic. From then on, I spent my days relaxing at my parents' house. The mental stress disappeared once I was away from those three. A few days after leaving, I got a bunch of missed calls from my husband. It was his day off. He probably thought I would come back on the weekend. Impatient with my absence, he lashed out when I answered the phone. As soon as I answered the phone, my husband started yelling at me. Hey, when are you coming back home? Hello? We're not coming back, you know? What are you talking about? Where are you? Our house is a mess because of you. Well, I don't know anything about strangers. Just handle it yourself. We're enjoying our time at my parents' house. Don't joke with me. You're a housewife, so doing the housework is your job, right? I'll forgive you now, so come back home quickly. I don't need your forgiveness. I intend to divorce you. Apparently, my husband thought I would come back after a short while, but I had no intention of ever returning to that house. Didn't you see the divorce papers I left in the living room? I want you to file them. Hey, are you serious? That's just a joke, right? Do I look like someone who jokes about such things? I'm serious. I tried to convey my seriousness, but he didn't seem to believe me. What are you talking about? If we divorce, how will you live? You can't support Emma alone, can you? No, I can support Emma by myself. Aren't you the ones who will have trouble without me? What? I don't need you. I work and have an income, unlike you. Then who's doing the housework? You can't even take care of your mom's caregiving, can you? You don't know where anything is in the house, nor anything about her medical appointments. That's your job. Just come back home now. I sighed in exasperation at my husband's utter lack of understanding. What's with that attitude? Don't make me angry, or I'll seriously divorce you. I'd welcome a divorce. I left the house intending to divorce. Weren't you the ones who told me to leave it be? I just did as you said. Stop it. We're having a hard time since you left. I didn't realize Mom needed so much care. You left all her care to me, right? She's quite heavy, and it's tough taking her to the bathroom, isn't it? I hurt my back several times until I got used to it and had to visit the hospital. He seemed to have underestimated the severity of his mother's condition. In reality, she couldn't perform basic functions like using the toilet or eating without assistance, and she had become quite overweight due to an unhealthy lifestyle. The doctor even expressed concerns about various lifestyle diseases. How can Mom get better? Isn't it impossible at this point? She doesn't seem interested in managing her weight. If this continues, she'll definitely develop lifestyle diseases. Her weight has made her back problems worse, and it might be best to consider placing her in a care facility. A facility costs money, right? It's better to take care of her at home than waste money. Then you guys figure it out. It's no longer my concern. You're seriously considering divorcing me? That's what I've been saying. There's no benefit for us to continue that life. So how will you live? How will you support Emma? You're not planning on making her work, are you? I would never do something so pitiful. I'll support Emma. Then my husband started laughing mockingly over the phone. How will someone like you support Emma? You've been a leech, living off my income until now. A leech, you mean me? Who else would it be? Wait, you didn't know? Know what? I've been working for years. What? My husband sounded dumbfounded. I was at a loss for words, that he, living with me, didn't even know I had been working. He really had no interest in me at all. I told you I was starting a job because your income alone was barely enough. A job? But you were always at home. I said I was gonna do work that I could do from home, remember? What? I don't remember that conversation. You just don't remember. I definitely told you. But work from home is like piecework, right? How can you raise Emma on such a small salary? Can you stop assuming things? I'm earning as much as you. If you think I'm lying, I can show you my bank account. What? You? He seemed shocked, lost for words for a while. I decided to tell him about my job. Remember, I used to work at a web design company? I used that experience to take on projects and earn money from home. It's convenient since I can work between household chores. So, when you were up late on the computer, you weren't just playing around, you were working? Exactly. I wanted to work as much as possible whenever I had time. Having a stable income means I can be ready for a divorce anytime. You were preparing for a divorce? Oh yes. I couldn't bear the thought of living like this forever. What the? I could sense his panic over the phone. My husband, who had always looked down on me, seemed to believe I was incapable of earning money. But back when I was single, I was earning quite well, compared to others my age. I had obtained qualifications to stand out and had a decent track record at my company. I could tell he was chagrined. Why would you? Even with a high school diploma, I can make it work with effort. Of course, education might be important, but without personal effort, it doesn't count for much in the real world. What? You're so cheeky, he muttered, clicking his tongue. Did you really think we could get by on your salary alone? Of course, I had a good income, but the money you contributed for household expenses was only about $1,000 a month. Did you think that was enough for a family of 5? $1,000 is plenty. Managing the money is your job as a woman. I sighed again at his inability to understand. True, he had a decent income working for a major company. In the beginning, he contributed more money, but gradually he gave less. Since then, I had been dipping into my savings and working to make ends meet. I've been covering the medical expenses for your mom and the shortfall in our food budget, but I gave you $1,000. What did you use my money for? It mostly went towards rent and high utility bills. Recently, electricity costs have soared, especially in the summer when air conditioning can cost nearly $500 a month. Besides, your mother always complains about the food and wants expensive items. It hurt to see the money I earned spent on her unnecessary expenses. You shouldn't call it unnecessary. I had never complained to my husband to this extent before. He seemed a bit surprised but more annoyed. If you're gonna act like this, I'll gladly divorce you. Don't come back later wanting to reconcile. Of course, that's fine with me. I assure you I'll never ask for a reconciliation. Fine, then I won't ever see you again. And I won't pay a dime for Emma's child support. I don't plan to ask you for child support. Instead, I'll be asking for alimony. What? He sounded deflated. He must have thought I was clueless about everything. You thought I wouldn't find out? Find out what? Why should I be paying you alimony? Because you've been cheating, obviously. And with a woman almost 2 decades younger than you? I wonder why she chose you even though she's married. What are you talking about? I haven't cheated. You must be mistaken. I'm not mistaken. I had it investigated by professionals. What? Professionals? I thought your behavior was suspicious, so I hired a private investigator. I have solid evidence, so you'll be paying me alimony. I had suspected my husband's strange behavior for years and had hired a detective agency to investigate. It turned out he was having an affair with a young woman at work. She was a temp who joined a few years ago. I don't know who initiated it, but they were secretly meeting after work. He must have thought I had no clue. He didn't even bother to lock his phone and openly communicated with her. I had all their exchanges as evidence. When he realized I had been investigating him secretly, he started to get angry. So, you've been snooping around behind my back. You're such a nasty woman. I don't want to hear that from someone who's openly cheating with a coworker. Won't it be bad if your workplace finds out? You didn't tell my workplace, did you? No, I haven't said anything, but it's only a matter of time before it gets out. Her husband will probably realize it too. Shut up. I've been living with you and taking care of you all this time. I'm not paying any alimony. Of course, I didn't expect it, but my husband didn't even offer a single apology for his affair. Furthermore, he even tried to blame me for his cheating. I cheated because you weren't attractive enough as a woman. You didn't wear makeup or dress well. You were just an old woman. I had no choice. I was busy with housework, caregiving, and my job. I didn't have time or money to care about fashion. Don't make excuses. Luna was always stylish and well made up. She even went to the gym to keep in shape. You're nothing like her. You really have no remorse, do you? Why should I apologize to you? You're the one at fault here. Whatever, I'll be claiming alimony since you've spent on her, instead of supporting me more. I'll also let her know about this. What? You're gonna intervene on Luna's side too? Of course, she knew you were married and still had an affair with you. If you do that, her husband will find out. He has the right to know. It's gonna be quite a mess for you. Don't you dare get in touch with Luna. I won't forgive you. She's responsible too. We'll discuss this further through our lawyers. Goodbye. Wait, we're not done talking. He was shouting complaints, but I ignored him. I hung up and blocked his number. Later, we finalized our divorce through lawyers. I successfully collected alimony from my ex-husband. I escaped that hellish life, but months after the divorce, Raylan called me. Over the phone, Raylan was crying. Mom, I need your help. I can't live with Dad anymore. I want to get out of this house as soon as possible. What? I'm not your mom anymore. I coldly brushed her off and she cried even more. I regretted answering the call, but reluctantly agreed to listen to her story. Dad told me to drop out of college and start working. I worked so hard to get into my current university. Isn't that terrible? I have nothing to do with Dad's affair, so why do I have to suffer like this? Raylan apparently had no idea about her father's affair. She was severely disillusioned when she found out he was cheating with a younger woman, and their relationship had soured. Also, there was a secret about her father's mistress. The mistress's husband, he was a dangerous guy, right? Dad got hit with a huge alimony claim and scary debt collectors started showing up. We had to move out of our apartment, and now we're facing financial struggles. Now we're living in a shabby apartment. I kinda know about you guys, but Dad goes to work during the day, so I ended up taking care of Grandma. It's affecting my college attendance. If this continues, I'll fail my courses. Mom, please help me. You said you didn't think of me as your mother, remember? I'm sorry, but I no longer think of you as my daughter. Emma is all the daughter I need. That's cruel. Why would you say something like that? Raylan must have thought I would extend a helping hand. The old me, living with her, would never have abandoned her, no matter how badly she treated me. But now she's a stranger to me. Additionally, after being treated so badly by her all this time, I don't feel obligated to help her. If this goes on, I'll have to drop out and give up on my dreams. I'll do anything to help, just let me live with you. That's impossible. I can barely afford to support Emma on my income. She wants to go to college too, and I need to save for that. What about me? My life is a mess. If you're gonna blame someone, blame your father. I'm sorry, but I can't forgive you. I haven't forgiven you for everything you've done. I'm sorry for the awful things I said. I won't ever say them again. It's not just about me, you've been terrible to Emma too. Terrible? I haven't done anything to Emma. Don't bother lying. I know everything. Emma told me everything. What? Emma talked to you about it? Yes, she cried and told me everything that happened. Emma and Raylan are 4 years apart. Raylan used to harass Emma when I wasn't looking. It was common for her to say hurtful things. She apparently even took things I bought for Emma and tried to push her down the stairs. Raylan threatened her not to tell me, so she couldn't talk to me about it. I found out about the harassment when I decided to leave the house. To me, Emma is more important than my own life. I can't help someone who hurt my daughter like you did. Then, if not living together, at least lend me some money. I really don't want to drop out of college. I'm so desperate for money. I don't even have time for a part-time job. If I had money to lend, I'd use it for Emma. That's so unfair. It might sound harsh, but I think you should experience the same hell as your father. Don't say that. Mom, what's happened to you? I'm not your mother. Stop calling me that. It's unpleasant. Don't contact me for trivial things anymore. I won't answer your calls. Wait, just a minute. Raylan was screaming over the phone, but I ignored her and hung up. It may seem heartless, but I have no regrets. After that call, Raylan tried to contact me several times, but I ignored all of them. She sent numerous messages asking for help, but of course, I didn't respond. Out of curiosity, I did check up on her situation. It seems that she eventually dropped out of college. She was forced out due to unpaid tuition fees. My ex-husband Lucas had asked Raylan to work part-time and take care of her grandmother, but Raylan furiously left the house. Lucas had to keep working to pay off his debts, so he couldn't care for his mother and had to put her in a facility. The facility's expenses are being covered by loans. As for the mistress, she apparently left her job, but Lucas continues to work. His affair has become known at work, and he's being looked at with disdain. Despite this, he can't quit due to his debts and living expenses, and he is working under uncomfortable circumstances. Meanwhile, I am living a comfortable life, free from those three. I have supportive parents at home, and Emma is thriving. Though moving because of Emma's high school admission was necessary, she got into the top school in the county and is enjoying her high school life. Emma aspires to become a lawyer, inspired by the attorney who handled my case. From now on, I want to forget the past and live looking forward.